Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Creatives of Windsor Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Sherdown, and today I'm sitting down with Tori Roovers, who's the co-host of Mix 96.7's Jay and Tori in the Morning, and she also hosts her own podcast called Tori Her Podcast. Tori, thanks for coming on.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just going to say, we were just talking about this, but this is very weird because I'm never on the other end of it. I'm always doing the interviewing. So this is a little strange, but it's fun.
I'm sure it feels strange. That was like me when I, like if I ever have to get pictures done of myself, it's like really, really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel, I mean, it's still fun. And I've actually taken a little break from the podcast in the past little bit. And I was telling my mom, I'm going to do a podcast today. And she's like, oh, you picked it back up? And I said, no. And then she's like, well, whose podcast are you doing? So I was trying to explain it to her, but she thought that I was filling in to interview somebody for somebody else's podcast. And I said, no, people don't do that. Okay, sure. Yeah, that's nice of you. But no, it's fun being a guest.
Yeah, for sure. Because you don't have to do like any of the, I guess, work.
No prep.
You just get to chill.
No, nothing. Yeah, it's very simple. It's very simple.
So how long ago did you start your podcast?
The podcast started when I was about a year into radio. So it's almost 2 years old now, I guess it would be. But it's strange because, I started it under a different name. I don't know if you know this, but it used to be called It's Not That Weird. It was just like, I wanted to start a podcast for years, like everybody does, right? Everybody wants to start a podcast, but my friends and I were having all these like super interesting conversations. And then I was in radio for, about a year, and they were super encouraging of like, if you guys have any passion projects, if you guys want to start a podcast, whatever you guys want to do, you can use our studios, our medium, like whatever you need to do. So I was like, perfect, this is great. And I pitched it, and I was like the only person within our company that like took them up on the opportunity. So they were super giddy about it. And we just went back and forth on like branding and names. And for so long that I landed on It's Not That Weird, because I'm like, that's the basis of it. I think I recorded 4 episodes before I ever actually put anything out. Like 6 months prior to it even coming out. I had all these awesome people. My mom, Jay, my co-host, was on the first episode, and just some friends. And like that theme kept coming up, is like talking about shit that makes you feel like you're really weird. Like you're just like, you're the stuff you don't want to say. So like when you start saying it, all of a sudden everybody's like, yeah, I also feel that way. So it's really not that weird. But then there was it wasn't a legal dispute, but somebody who's a fantastic designer, actually, she's super talented, she reached out to me, and she goes under the same name, and she's from somewhere in Florida, and she needed me to change the name. So I don't know if I ever actually talked about it like publicly about what happened, because I was so distraught. I was so upset over it, because it made way more sense for a podcast in my head than it did for a design studio. But she was there first. She was totally right. She didn't threaten legal action, but she did have like a good following where like I recognized her work, and I was like, if it would be so much easier if I hated you. Like if I was like, fuck you, your stuff sucks. But I can swear, right?
Yeah, you can swear. Yeah.
When I'm not on the radio, it's all I do. So.
Oh, yeah, because so you can't swear in your morning show at all, but you can swear in your podcast.
Yeah, I can swear on the podcast. Oh my gosh, the stuff I talk about on the podcast is stuff that we encourage.
How do you like keep that balance?
Turn it on and off?
Remember what you're on?
I think, Jay helps a lot. Jay, my co-host, has been in radio for 20 years or something like that. He's been on Mix for 12 or 13, I want to say now. So he's like a good guide, I guess, for any kind of questions. One time I remember I was like, Jay, can we say tits on air? And he was like, I don't think that's allowed. But
is it allowed or no?
It's not. You can't say tits on air. You can say like hell and ass, but...
You can't say asshole though.
You can't say asshole.
But you can say ass?
Yeah.
And
you can say dumbass. You can say like badass or hard ass, but you can't say asshole. Yeah.
That's weird, eh?
Yeah. I've never actually seen the full list. It's just kind of like... I guess if you've listened to radio, you can kind of get what it is that is allowed and what's not. When you're listening to like David Chuck, fucking anything flies. But they've got some kind of special pass.
Do they actually? Like
I don't think so, but I think that they just they walk that line. So they probably get fined all the time, but like because they have the following they do and like the respect they do, that people just, they don't care. They like it, maybe?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
Who gets fined, you or the radio station?
The radio station would get fined, yeah.
Is it a lot?
I would imagine so. It's through the CRTC, right? Like is it the CRTC? I would think it's the CRTC. They would be the ones where, like, if there was or Broadcast Canada or something, there would be a note, I guess, if the listener would send it to them. They would complain to us, and I think we would be legally obligated to then report it, and then we would get the fine. Something like that. But we're very careful.
But you guys can dump it, right? Or no?
There is a dump button. I've never used it. Total transparency, I don't use the board when Jay and I are on air. He does all that. And then I'm actually... People don't know this, but I'm in another room when we do our morning show together because I started at a time when COVID was, I think I started and then we had our first case in Windsor 8 days later. So we were just like put in separate rooms. I'm in this little news booth in another room. So we don't see each other, but we make it work. I don't know what it is. Like, and now we're at this point where we're like, we don't want to see each other. Like, we're good. You're in your room. You're doing your thing. I don't know what you're doing in there. I'm in my room doing my thing. And then we just come on air. We can talk back and forth. But yeah, that's kind of the gist.
That's cool how people always like imagine how things are on the radio, but they never actually know how it is.
I know. I tell people it's very underwhelming because like if you were to see Jay and I do our thing, it's really not all that exciting. Like I honestly think what you've got going on in here is a lot more personal than our studio. And we also broadcast out of Leamington, which people don't know either.
You guys aren't downtown?
We're
you guys
not.
are the Leamington studio?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So we have one location, like our main Windsor, Essex location is on Argyle and Wyandotte, which is right by Walkerville Studio or Walkerville Brewery.
I ate under there last night for dinner.
Funky Chow?
Yeah.
Love Funky Chow. They're the best neighbors ever. So that's our main studio, but Jay and I broadcast out of Leamington where our other studio is, and it has to do with frequency and like morning I don't know. To be honest, I really should, but people ask all the time, why are you in Leamington? I'm like, I think it has to do with our towers. I don't know, but it's okay, and we don't mind it, but it is different than being like right in Windsor, right? Yeah, but we have 3 radio stations, right? Blackburn has got us, Country 95.9, and Cool. I'm saying that as if I'm confused, but I'm not, but it's a lot, because we hit mix, pop, we hit country, and then we also hit rock, so we have all kinds of demographics within our company.
It's cool. Yeah. A lot of people like from Windsor, they listen to, a lot of people obviously listen to our stations, but then they also listen to the Detroit stations.
Yes.
I think some people don't realize that there's like a bunch of like bigger stations here.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting. And thankfully when we're talking about market and like revenue and such, Detroit doesn't actually count in our market. We might count in theirs. I actually don't know, but our books or our rating system, which happen twice a year, they don't affect us at all. Yeah, thankfully, because they do have these big, huge stations that have been around for so long and they're so notable, and we listen to them here. So it is important that when we're talking like Canadian radio, as a border city, you know what's here and what's there.
That's cool.
Yes, it is. We try. We try to really differentiate, and there's different laws too. So
yeah, for sure. I would assume so.
Yeah.
I've never been in the 96 like in the mixed buildings, but I have been in the is it Bell Canada?
In Olette. There.
Yeah. I've been in that building. That building is very underwhelming too. I remember the first time I was in there, I was like, whoa.
See, Bell is like it's a big word around everywhere because they've got more money than God, right? And like we are independently owned and we're a private company and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting. But what I hear is, the same thing. I've never been in there either. Even like with school and stuff, I would have thought that I would have because I was at the Mediaplex as well.
Oh, you went to the Mediaplex too?
Yeah.
Oh, I went there.
Yeah, because you know Garrett, of course.
Yeah.
And Garrett is my best friend's fiance. And then this is, I think, how we all kind of come together.
So when did you start there?
2017, I started in the PR program.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
What year are you born?
97.
Okay.
I'm 25, turning 26 very soon.
Okay. So I'm 2 years older than you are.
Yes.
I started, I went to the Mediaplex. I started in 2014. So
they were brand new.
I was like one of the, I wasn't the first year there.
Sure, but one of them.
I think I was like the second.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Second or the third.
Sure.
But I took journalism. Did you take journalism there?
No, I took public relations, and then I did a year actually at the Center for the Arts doing, it was called Web and Interactive Advertising, but they actually don't even offer it anymore. They got rid of it.
Okay.
I think I was the second or third class from that, and then they got rid of it within a couple of years.
And then you got into radio, but you didn't take journalism.
I didn't take journalism.
That's funny.
Public relations, we did not do any radio practicing, nothing. I think we might have did like a demo or something in those studios. Because I mean, if people don't know, the Mediaplex is amazing. And they have all of like that big newsroom, and then they also have little studios and stuff. But I don't remember maybe once going in there for something. But no, I had no experience going into this.
Wow, that's really cool. I want to get into like how you got into it in a second, but I do want to talk about the Mediaplex first.
Yeah.
Because we both went to school there, which is really cool. I love going to school there.
I know.
It was nice being downtown and like, I don't know. It was cool, that program, because like there was all kinds of classes, but the professors and like the teachers let you pick your lane.
Sure.
So like, even though there was like radio and there was like on camera video and news and all this stuff, like because I was a photographer, all of my projects in that program were tailored around
that medium
photography.
Yeah.
So like, I know people that did like a million projects in the radio booth, and I was only in the radio booth like for the couple times you had to be.
When you had to be. Yeah.
Which is cool. How you get to like really, you know,
they give you this like home base with cameras. They let you take out cameras. Like I think people don't know that you get to take out cameras. You get to use the booths. Even in PR, I don't know if I'm sure you know this, but they have at the Mediaplex the Live at One show that airs on Coach Co. Is it still Coach Co? I don't know. It used to do that, but even in PR, we were required to go help in the newsroom. Yeah. And that was cool because one person would be like behind the camera every now and then. One person would be running the camera. One person would be producing or whatever it was. But it was just cool that we were required to do that, even though we were in public relations. Technically, we don't need it, but it was something that they said, no, you have to do it at least once, and that's how you get to leave here. But it was cool.
That live show, like, so yeah, the way it worked in journalism. So if you were into TV and you like wanted to be a news anchor, like you could go on a lot, but if you didn't, like me, you still had to go on once a semester.
Yeah.
So you had to go on live TV and read from a teleprompter in a suit.
Yeah. And people, like, it's not just live TV, like it's real live TV. It's not just like a little TV program that the school puts on. It's on Kojiko.
Yeah, like it's
like
on TV.
They air it and it's live and it's scary. And they asked if I wanted to do it, and at the time I didn't. And I think I did the producing or the directing or whatever the fuck it was. And watching my person, because he was in PR too, and he just like thrived. He loved it, and I was like, I could never do that. And now I talk for a living, like publicly and live. So it's interesting.
So, okay, so how did you, we'll come back to your podcast in a minute. Yeah, so, please. Like, how did you get into radio then?
Okay, so when I started in the PR program, I applied Rebecca Wright. Shout out Rebecca Wright, who's an angel on earth. I adore her. She told me about a job opportunity because Blackburn was hiring summer patrollers. And she sent me the job posting, and I applied. I got an interview, and I got hired with like 5 people, including New Saba, which is how New Saba and I know each other. And I worked there doing summer patrol stuff for like 3 years, and I loved it. It was the best job ever. Like I tell people all the time, summer patrol, summer road crew, any kind of like you get to go to events on behalf of a radio station or any kind of media company. It's the best thing in the world. If you give people free swag and you give them a chance to win gift cards or concert tickets, and they just think that you're the best thing in the world. So we did such a good job too. We had a really good team, and we all stood out because we all had those personalities. You have to be willing to like get in people's faces and like not harass people, but say like, hey, do you know who we are? And if you don't, what's wrong with you? Or come learn who we are. And we were really good at that. I have always been pretty good at networking, I would say. So I did that when I was in school. And then when I went to go do that second program I was talking about, I actually got a job right out of graduation from that. So my third year of school, I was finishing that specialization program, I think it was. And I got a job in a marketing agency. And I did that for, I think it was 11 months, but I was still doing Blackburn very, very part-time. Because when it's not the summer, you're not very busy. Yeah. So very, very part-time, I was doing events still when I could. And the agency work, it's not that it wasn't for me. I was honestly really good at it. I was a coordinator and a social media specialist, and I killed it, to be honest.
Good.
But it was just not a great environment, and just the behind the desk and the, calling people all the time and just trying to like put out fires and connect things all the time. I didn't get to do a lot of like client facing stuff. I didn't get to represent anything really that well. Yeah. But then this other company, Blackburn, when I was there, they were like, we want you to just be you, but bigger, just like do better and be yourself and just be it harder. So they had a host leave pretty abruptly, Jay's co-host. He had gone through a couple in like a pretty short amount of time, and it was just circumstantial. So when the opportunity came up, and people would ask all the time when I was at events and stuff, like, oh, so you want to do radio? And I would say, no, not at all. I'm just working for a radio company that I love, which is great, but I have no intentions of ever being on air. And then they had the job posting go up, and I heard that my now boss was walking around saying, we're looking for somebody just like Tori. And I think I was just so miserable at the other job. They treated me so poorly, and they were always so good to me that I was like, why am I not doing that? Like, what's the worst that can happen? I try, and this is a good company. They've always been good to me. So one of our other morning show hosts, Dave Timo, he's from Cool 100.7, very deep, sultry, jazz-like voice. Yeah. He helped me put together a demo, which I had never done. we did that, like a fake demo, sent it to my now boss, which is funny because like I've worked with these people for so long, right? So it was like so seamless. Like, and I know a lot of people had some animosity because I didn't have experience. I didn't ever do radio other than working for the company for 3 years. It was going on 4 years. So now it's been like 7 years that I've worked for them, 3 on air, almost 4 in March will be.
That's
4.
crazy.
So I guess 3.5 years. But it honestly was just about like who I knew and where I was. And that's honestly what media is, right? It's not really necessarily about experience. As much as we want to say it is, it's good to have it, but it's really about who you know.
For sure. And just like you as a person, like how much like your personality and like how much work you put in and effort, like the background doesn't, especially when it comes to like any art form, is like
talent, right? Talent does show through. And I mean, again, like, you know this. You know, whether it's visual or whatever it is, media, art, it's all subjective. And you find these people, you meet these people, and when they can tell that like you're doing it for the love of it rather than the attention or the money or the whatever, it shows through.
For sure, 100%. People like throughout my career, like I've been doing photography for 10 years, but I've been doing it full time for 8-ish, whatever. And over that time, there's been a couple times where people have like, do you have a degree in photography? And I'm like, no, but this is my work. You know, like it doesn't, it's just like if you were to go get a tattoo, do you care if they have a degree or do you care if they do good tattoos?
I think I would prefer they didn't. I want them to just be a little weird. That's all I'm looking for. I am curious. And again, I'm usually on the other side of this. So I'm going to ask you some questions.
I love it.
Because photography it's used to be such a niche thing, right? Like photographers were, not that they were few and far between, but like the ones who had a distinct style, there's a lot of crossover between types of photography. And my question honestly is, how do you have the courage to pursue it full-time professionally? And also like, how do you differentiate yourself? Because it's just like personal brand and stuff is so interesting to me, especially in young people and like creatives. How do you do that? Because it's got to be so nerve-wracking.
Well, when I started, so like right when I finished high school, I wanted to like figure out, you know, what I wanted to do with my life.
They make you do that.
And I took the year, a lot of my friends were older than me. And just like everybody in general, I noticed that a lot of people would like go to college or university right after high school, drop out, and then take something that they stayed in the second year.
Sure.
So I was like, I have a really late birthday. So I would have been 17 for like all of first semester of university anyway. So I was like, hey, whatever. So I'll just take a year off. So I took a year off and I just worked. And during that time, I was like, I'm like, I need to pick something that I want to do.
The pressure is there. Yeah.
And I was always, I don't know, I guess inspired to like do something creative, but I never really like picked anything.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I've liked photography. Like I've dabbled in it like here and there. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it and I'm never going to stop. Cause you always do something for like a month and then you stop.
Sure. Yeah.
And this was like late 2013 and I told myself, okay, I'm buying this camera. I'm never allowed to stop. It's been 10 years. I've never stopped.
Wow.
I never took a break. I've just gone like full force. And there was like, for like the personal side, like the artwork aspect, I've always just done whatever I want to do.
Sure.
And then I was like, if I'm going to put this much effort into something, I should probably figure out how to make some money with it too.
Sure. Sure. Unfortunately, yeah.
Lucky for me, like I've got a pretty good line down the middle. Sometimes I make money with like the artwork and personal stuff, but like I don't care to, and that's not my goal because I want to do whatever I want because that's what I love. And then I've like put the line down the middle where like the business side, which I also love very much.
That's important. Yes.
And I just kind of do all like the services and all that work. And I don't know. I try to take like some aspects from the personal side and bring that into because I found like with photographers, people only do like artwork or they like only do the business.
Sure.
A lot of people don't do like both and separate them. So when I'm doing the business stuff, I try to be like a little bit extra creative or bring in some things from the personal side into that work.
It's not just the standard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of trying to be basic, but I don't know. I guess like you said, how are you not scared? There wasn't too much of a risk for me.
Okay.
Like I haven't had a job, like a real job, since I was 19. I was just doing photography, but I still lived at home.
Sure.
So there wasn't too much of a
cushion. Yeah.
And then by the time I moved out, I've already been doing it for a few years. So then I was like, I was good to go.
Yeah, and that's a privilege. It's not something everybody gets to do. But
oh, for sure.
And this was however many years ago when I feel like the landscape might have been totally different.
Yeah, things have changed a lot. Like, I've noticed like a pretty significant difference now after 10 years, but like how things were when we started to how they are now.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
But now it seems like you've given yourself, like you've put in the work and all of that, but you've got the freedom to kind of, I don't know, explore the things you want to explore. And again, this is somebody, when you're looking at everything visually, like I'm just interpreting what you do as like, wow, this guy's got a lot of freedom. Like your photos just show a life where you're like traveling and you're doing things and you got a studio, you're doing that kind of stuff. And it's impressive to say, but I imagine when it comes to art and creativity, it's thankfully, I always say I'm not a creative person. I don't know what I'm talking about, but then I do talk to people who are creative and they're like, yes, you are. It's just you're expressing it in a totally different way. Verbally, I guess, which is weird, but
100%.
It does make sense. But I guess you could see the pressure on so many people. I do know a good amount of photographers, and I just imagine that like nowadays it's this grind where like you got to differentiate yourself, you got to build the social media following, you got to make the money, and I guess if you really put in the work and set yourself to do that from the very beginning, then that's great. But I'm just always curious because it just seems like it's such a competitive field too. And how do you factor competitiveness into art? Like it's so subjective and scary, but yeah, I'm just commentating because I think it's very fascinating. It's very noble. It's interesting to me.
Thank you. You know what's funny is you bring all that up, but I would say the same thing to you about radio, even more so. Yeah. Like you're in radio in 2023, just like I'm in photography in 2023. Yeah. Like that seems even like I know a lot more professional photographers
than radio people. Yeah, radio is it's an interesting medium, and it's something that within the past 3 years, not even just the entire time I've worked here, because when I was working as a summer patroller, like, you know what you're selling, you know what you're promoting, but you don't necessarily know the ins and outs. And it's honestly like, it's a whole different realm of radio, essentially. It's marketing versus the actual radio, but on air programming is what it's called. That's what I do. It's interesting. It of course, everybody that I talk to is like, oh my God, that's so cool. That's so cool. My mom introduces me to people. I was like, oh, do you know Mix? Have you ever listened to Mix? This is my daughter. She's Tori. Do you know Tori? Like, it's that kind of thing. So it's not so much that it's, like it's tricky to navigate like this digital world. Honestly, it's coming pretty seamlessly. It does take like an awareness of what's happening, especially with like social media and like kind of the way things have shifted within just the past couple of months is really it's been very discouraging with the whole Facebook bill thing for me.
Is your Instagram shut down?
Yeah. So our Facebook and our Instagram and love my coworkers and love my boss and everybody in programming, but they're all being a little too cavalier about it. And I'm like, guys, this is a huge deal. I'm like, why aren't you freaking out about this? When I think I was in Vancouver. I went to Vancouver at the beginning of August, and I was getting these notifications from our Facebook page saying, your account is under investigation whatever the word is. It's being reviewed is what it is, because of media broadcasting this new bill, blah, blah, blah. So I started looking into it, and I'm like, there's no fucking way this is real. Like, this is insane. On Mix, our Facebook page has 60,000 followers. Our Instagram about 5,000-6,000 or something like that. But that is 60,000 people. Looking at our demographics, it's not all Canada, but that is 60,000 people who we had a point of access to if they weren't listening to the radio, which some of them are. Yeah. But it was a way for us to get them listening because we have a contest, because we're talking about this on air. It was so great we make a post at 6:00 in the morning, and by 8:00 we're reading comments, we're having people call in, like that kind of thing. So when you lose that, it's like, why is nobody mourning this? Like, I'm struggling. And I know that, I'm the youngest. I am the youngest by a lot in our company.
For sure.
Like by a lot. And no offense to Jay, he's 43 and I'm 26. So yeah. He's 15 at heart, so it's fine. But he is like, yeah, whatever. And my program director, who's also in his 40s, he's just like, well, we just got to find new ways to be creative. And I'm like, see, you get that because you have seen the trajectory of radio. He was on, he was with Bell for a long time too.
They've always learned how to adapt.
Yes, yeah. So they're like, oh, this, the landscape changes every few years. And I'm like, but this isn't good. It's like, we have to fight back. But it's been discouraging. I won't admit, like within the past month, I feel like I'm different on air because I'm not even thinking. I'm just so like, I should be focusing on the on-air creativity and the content and stuff like that, but I just keep thinking about what we lost, I guess, which is silly, and you do have to move on, and I will. but I'm going to be a little bitter, and I'm going to call Mark Zuckerberg, and I'm going to complain. I'm going to fight him myself in a ring.
So the goal, this is what I've understood from this, but obviously you're going to know more. So the Canadian government did this because they want Facebook and Meta to pay you guys, right? Is that what they want?
See, well, this is another thing that's interesting is we're a radio station. We're not a news outlet. So us being in this category, a lot of people are like, why are you in this? I'm like, I fucking know. It's so annoying. We very rarely share links, but we do, of course, have Blackburn News associated with us where we will share their stuff.
That's your mother company, right?
Well, Blackburn Media is just all of us. And then so Blackburn News is a section of it. Programming is another, essentially.
I got you.
But yeah, we do news updates every 30 minutes. So,
yes,
it is. It's an important part of what we do, and our news team is amazing. Mark Brown, you know Mark Brown?
Yeah.
So he's part of our news team.
He was like in my year.
Yeah.
I'm good friends with Mark.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's the best.
He's one of our top people. We've got Adele Loisel, who's amazing. Just all kinds of people. We're really lucky. But so the Facebook, my understanding of it is actually very limited. When I first saw it and me just going into like, God, everything's so fucked mode, I was like, okay, so they're doing this because in my mind, and maybe this isn't fair, but in my mind, I was like, it's because you fuckers can't tell the difference between like real credible news and these shitty little news sources that just support whatever you want to say it. So I'm like, it's your racist uncle's fault. Like I was like, this is your fault, but it's not. It is what you're saying, and I've come to understand that it is more so about the fact that these news outlets are not making money on online views where they should be, and advertisers and all that kind of stuff. So
and Facebook's making all the money off of your work.
Essentially, yes.
And they want them to pay you.
Yes, essentially. But Facebook is not going to do that. Why would they do that? They don't have to.
They don't have to.
Yeah. So instead, they're going to say, oh, you want money? We're just going to shut this shit down. What? Yeah. Like, how does that... It is frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating. And what I have learned within the past 3 years, because like I said, I started right at the time of COVID. People started hating the media. They hated the media before, but it lit this fucking fire where like in London, when the convoy happened, we heard that like our radio station, because we're all over Southwestern Ontario, that there was people showing up there like banging on windows and shit. And we're like, the convoy's here. Do they know that? Like we're okay. Like people have a very strong reaction to the word media now when you're talking in news and stuff. And it's been tricky to not like lash out at people and be like, do you fucking know you're talking about also me and what I do? I fall into this category of like relaying the news. I'm lucky that we get to be the entertainment aspect of it, and we get to commentate and we get to kind of have some fun with it, or we get to get serious about it. We have that kind of freedom. But you're talking about like my entire livelihood, like my basis of like what I believe in terms of the media. And I mean, they taught this at the Mediaplex. I remember it clear as day. If you don't have truthful, honest journalism, you don't have a democracy. So these people who want to just scream and shout that like this is wrong and you're spreading this fake news and blah blah blah, there are people whose entire job is to fact check this. You can't just do that. And I know that there's all these theories, and I don't necessarily disagree that news is incredibly biased. It is, but I don't know, just for such a strong reaction to the media, and now with this new bill, it's been so interesting to see people in comment sections kind of shifting blame between like it's Facebook's fault, no, it's the government's fault, because everybody wants to scream that it's the government's fault, but in this regard it is Facebook's move. So like, or Meta, sorry, it is Meta's move. So it's complicated and it's frustrating, and you do kind of have to build up a little bit of a tolerance for just like the fact that people can be so illiterate when it comes to media, and it's disheartening, but like that's why you do have to work on just being honest, I guess.
I remember when we were in school, like you said, like you had to be like honest and
There's
unbiased.
A whole book. There's a whole book that you have to buy. I had to buy NPR.
Yeah, what's it called? You know what? I have it.
I know.
I have it inside my house in a drawer.
I probably do too.
Unless I sold it to a first year, but I doubt it.
It's pretty much like the Bible for journalists, essentially. And it's like all of the rules in Canada and the laws and all of the regulations and everything that you need to know when you are writing a piece to know what...
Is it the CP book?
It is the Canadian Press of something and fucking whatever.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm talking about. That book, I remember we needed to have it as well. And it's just to understand, I guess. And again, this isn't somebody who didn't take journalism. We took public relations, which is how to interact with journalists, you know?
So it's so similar. In the school, in the same building with all the same teachers.
Less writing. It was a lot less writing and more presenting.
But so I was 18 when I started that program. I didn't know much about the news. I didn't know much about anything.
Oh my God, and it's totally changed.
Yeah,
they're constantly
sure.
like trying to figure out how they need to integrate more current things that are happening. When I was leaving public relations, we didn't have a social media class, and we kind of like demanded it. Like we were like, hey, this would have been 2018. We're like, this is everything, and it's 2018 to now is totally like catastrophically different. So we had one class, and then now I hear that they have at least like 2 or 3.
So I'm very close with Vero. And
Miss Vernie.
she's the best person ever.
The best.
So I ran into her like a month ago, and I was talking to her. She just revamped the whole journalism program again.
Yes, yeah. And they have to do this like every couple of years, and that itself is like a whole summer-long process. So to have to do that for multiple programs, all in media, it's a lot.
She's the best, especially for somebody who's been around for so long. Like to keep up to date with things like that, like good for her. She's like the best person for that job.
She's wonderful.
She's so knowledgeable and like, so she's told me that she's broken the journalism program down, and she's like, it's so different from when you were there. She's like, it's like a third photo and video, a third social media, and then a third journalism. When I was there, it was 100% journalism.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. It's tricky. It's I don't know. That's the problem too, is that it's like, well, you have to teach people from the get-go that like truth is not, it should be objective. Like it should be, it's just so tricky. It's I don't even know how we got on this. Probably me, because it's just something I've been thinking about so much since this bill, and it's just it's discouraging, but I would like to think that it's not forever, because it just doesn't seem possible. Like it just seems like this is such a fucked up thing that it's like there's no way that this is gonna. I
think one of two people have to fold. I think either like Meta has to fold and say okay, or the government has to fold and be like, okay, well these people need their news, so we gotta just. But then you can still access it. Like there's all these arguments. I get it, and I don't know. I'm hearing all these people talk about it, and I'm like, okay, I know you guys get it, but I can't share my memes. I don't even think I can. What the
fuck? You can't see us.
If I wanted to, like, say I go to my podcast page on Facebook and I go to your podcast through the Mix's website and I copy and paste it to share that you're coming on, I don't think it'll show. I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think it'll like. Let
I gave
me
up on
post
Facebook after this. I haven't even tried.
I don't think it'll. I haven't tried yet either, but I don't think it'll let me share a link from
Mix,
the Mix's website.
Which is Mix is not the news page. Like at the very bottom, we might
don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure.
I guess we'll find out. But at the very bottom of our page, we have some of the links to Blackbird News, or WindsorNewsToday.ca is the new website. But we ourselves are not sharing news, not like that. And also keep in mind, Jay and I mostly we're talking about the video of the cat who could ring doorbells or something like that. We're talking about the survey of the top 10 douchiest names. Like we're not talking about like real factual journalism. Pretty often, I would say probably like 10-25% of our show do we ever talk about do we ever commentate on what's going on in the news? And we're not journalists. Like we are very explicit about that. You would know just listening to us. We are not professionals.
So I want to get into some like radio questions. We'll lighten up this conversation.
Sure. Yeah, sorry,
bit.
I got a little heavy. I tend to whenever I have the chance.
That's okay. I like it. So first thing, what time are you guys on the radio from?
This is the funnest question in the world. So my show starts at 5:35, and I'm done by 9:50. That's my last breaks. Like my first break is around 9 or 5:30, and then my last break is around 9:45 in the morning. Yeah. So 5 to 10 a.m. is kind of essentially what I tell people.
Okay, so you guys go live at what time?
5:30.
5:30.
Yeah,
okay,
that's our first break.
And it's in Leamington.
Leamington. Yeah.
So what time do you have to?
Do I get up? What time do I leave?
You get up?
Well, I'm actually in the middle of moving, which is throwing a fucking kibosh on everything because I'm moving to Windsor.
Where do you live now?
I live in Essex.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so everything's like it's pretty
so
central.
You're in the middle.
I'm so perfectly in the middle, but I'm about to change all that. No, I get up around the first alarm is 5:35, and I'm one of those. Yeah,
that's what time you start.
No. Sorry, 3:45. 5:35. I have one of those alarms that simulates the sun rising, which is apparently that's how your REM stops or whatever the fuck it is. But it's because I'm up way before the sun, so like it is good because it lights up the room in like a slow increment. Like every 10 minutes, it gets a little bit brighter to kind of help you come out of that a little easier. Because the sun is apparently how you're supposed to wake up via the sun. But yeah, I use that, and then I am out of the door. I don't even want to say because I'm usually pretty late. I get in around, we'll say 5, and then I'm on air by like 5:30.
Wow, that's early.
It's early.
That's the middle of the night.
It's the middle of the night for a lot of people. A lot of my friends are still like texting me, and my best friend just moved to Vancouver, so she's 3 hours behind, I believe. And so she's Like, I mean, it's only like 2:00 in the morning there. So she's just like, what's up? Or what's going on? Or it's 11 or 12 or whatever the fuck it is. But I'm just like, fuck, my God.
So you finish at 10
a.m.
And then what do you do? Do you go home and go back to bed, or do you just go to bed early?
I usually go to bed early. That's I found to be the best.
So you just live a whole day.
Yep.
Wow.
I mean, it is nice though, because I get to have a life between like 11 or noon or whatever. We'll say I end 11 to 8 p.m. is just kind of whatever. But I do start winding down around like 6, 7, 8. Like, I'm not gonna, very rarely, and like, you do kind of have to build your life around this idea that like, if there's a plan where like, you have a friend's birthday party and it starts at 6 and like, it's a weekday, it's kind of like, okay, well, I do have to keep in mind that the following day, I'm probably gonna have to go home after the show and nap so that I can still not fuck all this up, essentially. Yeah. Which is I mean, I started at 22. I started on air when I was 22 years old, and that was an interesting thing. Luckily, again, it was COVID, so nobody was really doing anything. I didn't really have the FOMO, and now I'm still pretty okay with it.
Yeah.
Like, it's still pretty, there's not really much going on a weekday past 8 p.m. where I'm like, God, I gotta be there.
Yeah,
like,
for
not
sure.
really.
For sure.
Nothing I can really think of. And, I drink way less, I would say, probably, which is great, because alcohol is the worst thing in the world. But yeah, it's that can really fuck up everything too. Like, if you, this weekend, Labor Day weekend, right?
Yeah.
Is when this is recording, but I was up until like 3 on Saturday or something like that, and my mom, we were at a family reunion. Wild family reunion
until 3 a.m.
Till 3 o'clock in the morning. It's wild shit. It's St. Louis. Shout out St. Louis. They were insane. We were having a good time, and we got home, and I was like drunk on the kitchen floor making grilled cheese. I'm like, oh my God, this is when I would be waking up for work, and it's fun. Like, it's whatever.
Yeah.
You kind of like. There's cycles, and some days it's harder. Some days it's so easy. I've stayed up all night and done the show, I think, 3 times.
Really?
Yeah, I will admit, though, my best shows, my most like creative, like zany shows, are when I have very little sleep.
Okay.
I don't do it on purpose, but it is true.
That's cool. That's interesting. That's so interesting. So when you finish, do you have to stay at work and like do stuff and prep for the next day, or do you just are you guys done? Like,
CJ and I are pretty lucky because there's 2 of us. If it was a solo show, a solo live show, we got to do a lot of prep. But because it's 2 of us, we can kind of like roll in and be like, so what happened last night? What'd you do? Like, what'd you see? What's going on the internet? Like, we can kind of talk through it and like kind of formulate our show that morning. We do have we do have some things where like we do really try to prep them ahead. And like, if there's like a national day coming out, like the Barbie movie, God, we
I
there's
saw your
so
picture
much. We got to go. We got to go to the early premiere, which was pretty cool. Cineplex was really cool about that. So like that whole, month was like Barbie month, right? And that was kind of the last thing that I can think of that was like a big, we put a lot of effort into one subject or one kind of thing for a while.
Yeah.
Was Barbie, which is really lucky considering some people it's like tax season.
Yeah.
We're like, Barbie movie, we're going to dye her, Jay dyed his hair blonde, that kind of thing. So
that's fun.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's so interesting to me. Like the schedule. I've always wondered that with radio people.
Yeah.
That's cool though. That's
shocks
still, like,
people. Yeah.
You get to have a whole day though.
Yeah.
Like that's really nice.
My appointments, people are like, what time can you come in? And I'm like, anytime afternoon, baby. Like, I'm anytime. I'm the coolest client ever. You just let me know when you want me.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you know Jay before? Well, you worked there, so did you kind of know him?
Oh, okay, well, the thing about Jay that I love to tell people, Jay's very antisocial. Very antisocial. Like, when we're doing events and stuff, he'll do the event, he'll do the hosting, whatever, and then he wants to get the fuck out of there. He's got 2 kids, 2 young kids, 2 girls, and I've never met somebody who's like truly enjoys their kids as much as Jay. Like, it's actually very respectable. Jay is a very progressive guy. He's really easy to get along with. So when people ask if we like each other outside, we're cool. Like, we'll text every now and then. Like, Jay is a cool guy, and we really let our relationship showcase with the morning show. And that's our relationship on crack, essentially, is what we say. Like, our morning show self is ourself on steroids. Like, it's just us bigger. So he and I, like, I knew of him. I had worked an event as a road crew or a patroller where, like, he was emceeing, so he would be there. But again, he wasn't, like, he's not, like, hanging around doing things. Like, he's kind of in and out. But I actually technically the job came into my mirror, I guess, because I was still on payroll and doing summer patrol stuff, but it was like February, I want to say, and his co-host had just dropped out, and they had an event coming up, which was the Windsor Wedding Show, which is a big event, and he and his co-host always host the fashion show. It's like a big thing, and it's super fun, and they said, would you be willing to fill in? just until, whatever happens, just for the fashion show. And I was like, yeah. And I actually know the organizers, and they're really great people, really supportive.
Hey, Nancy?
This is
like the wedding show at the Caboto Club?
No, this is the one at Chicharo.
Chicharo, okay.
Yes,
okay.
yes. There's two. And,
There's two,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know one is paused for a while, so I don't totally know. But no, this was Maurizio. He's lovely.
Yes.
And they were so supportive. So they were like, yeah, come do it. Really fun because like Sophie's gown shop gave me a dress to wear for like the weekend, and like
that's cool.
It's super. We were just up there hosting. We had a good time, and then as we were like walking onto the stage the one day, Jay was just like, "So would you ever consider doing like radio, like doing the morning show?" And at that point I was in the midst of making that demo. So I was like, yeah, Jay, I actually wanted to talk to you because like I was, I'm thinking to apply. And he was like, well, I'm telling you, like I would root for you, and like 100% you would be great. So he was super supportive. And I always say like, well, Dave Timo, he really helped me get that job. And Jay's like, fuck off. It was me who helped you get that job. And I mean, it was me too, but he was like, no, I was the one who said like, yeah, because I mean, compatibility is the most important thing. It would be one thing if Jay and I like did this show and we've totally faked it and we hated each other, but we really honestly don't. He's really fun. He's truly so progressive. He's like a bigger feminist than me sometimes. I'm like, Jay, you're really heated right now. Like, really heated about abortion. Like, okay. It's a Tuesday morning, buddy. Relax. We're not talking about that on air, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing too, subject picking. Because we both are, we're pretty invested in politics, Western politics and whatnot. So we have these conversations off air. And it's like, God, if our mic was on, we would be so fucked right now. Like, we would have a whole demographic of people boycotting, recording, starting petitions. But, we have fun. And he's just decent. He's just a good dude. Big, tall dude, too. I don't know if anybody's ever seen him. Meeting radio people in person is extremely underwhelming. And I love to say that. People are like, oh my God, your voice. And I'm like, don't even act like this is a big deal. Like, because this is what I look like. It's nothing like what I know it sounds like I look like, which is very interesting and weird.
Yeah, you're not that crazy. Like I've seen a lot more that were like really crazy. It's like, whoa.
Like Mojo in the Morning. Do you remember seeing what he looked like for the first time? Like when you were a kid listening to Mojo forever, and then I remember seeing a picture of him on the internet, and I was like, what the? Like, you feel cheated. You're like, that's what, and it's not like he's like unattractive or anything like that. There's just something about it that's like, I just didn't expect that.
His voice is very good. Mm-hmm. I do. I listen to their show quite a bit too.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, like I've listened to that show. I listened to that show in like high school.
Yeah.
And I always been like, what time do you people wake up at? And now I got to actually ask.
Now you know. Yeah. I mean, they actually start, I sometimes listen to Mojo. That's the thing about being on the morning shows. You don't get to listen to other morning shows. So you don't necessarily know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And what other people are talking about. You're just so focused on doing your own thing. But Mojo has a like super early pre-show. And I don't know if it's pre-recorded. I don't know what it is. But it is usually playing while I'm driving into work. So I will sometimes tune into it just to kind of hear what's going on. And it's very topical, but it is... You can usually tell if something's kind of pre-recorded based on how timely whatever they're talking about is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So he's usually talking about stuff that is pretty like of that day or of that morning, but very rarely do I hear something that they're talking about and go, oh my God, I got to go to work and talk about that because it's so topical and now. Like it's probably from the night before, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe.
I would guess.
Yeah, that's cool. So I kind of let's get into some, I don't know, I guess some things about you.
Yeah.
So
love me.
What are you a music fan?
Huge music fan.
What kind of music do you like?
Okay, so this is a constant conversation. Everything essentially but country music. But country
it's
music,
like everybody's answer.
I know.
Do you like music?
During the summer, country music has its place, right? It's not that it's like you want to listen to it all the time, but it comes on and you're not angry. When it's like not summer, I'm like, get this fucking shit. What are we listening to right now? Like,
unless you're on a boat or an island.
Yes. Or I'm like on a beach and I'm with. I'm from Essex again, so we got a lot of Hicktown people walking around and whatnot. So country is pretty prevalent, but it has its place, and I do see it. I will tell you, as somebody in radio, country has the most loyal fans of any genre in the world. Country music listeners who are strictly country music are never going to stray. Maybe classic rock every now and then.
Yeah.
And even that's going to be like the Eagles. Like, it's not going to be like, I don't know, Ozzy Osbourne. It's going to be something like that in my, experience.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I'm young.
Okay, let's jump back into your podcast, I guess. So you said you haven't filmed one in a little while?
I haven't recorded in a while. I mean, I'm somebody who does not mind getting personal at all, and total transparency, I don't care, which is, it's actually really great for the podcast, because I'm saying stuff that like I never thought that I would say out loud, let alone for people to hear, just based off the conversations that I'm having with other people to make them feel more comfortable. Again, so I'm just going to give information. So my grandma was sick for a while, and after the whole rebrand had to happen, I took like a little hiatus. Last year, it was a lot going on, so it was tough. I came back in February of this year with, I think I was 21 episodes in. So when I came back, I did another 6 or 7, I want to say.
So yeah, because you're at like almost 30, right?
It's at 28 at the moment. Yeah, so 28 episodes. I had to take that little break. Came back with the new branding, and it's weak. Like it's temporary. And I said that even like going into it. This isn't Tori and Her Podcast is not the official name. I just wanted to get back to doing it, not really caring about the branding, because like I was stressing myself out to know, like every day I was waking up going, what color is it going to be? What's the name going to be? What's the font going to be? Like I was seriously thinking nonstop just about branding, and knowing I already have the format down in terms of what I want to talk about and what the style of it is. Mm-hmm. So I was like, let me just get back to doing it, and then the name will come later. So that happened. Kept doing episodes, had a great time with it again. And then, my grandma was sick, and my mom had to move like to Toronto with her and such, and like living at home with my mom at the time. And it was a big shock. It was tough. Like it was a interesting couple months, a lot of changes, but I did keep going and I loved it. And then at the beginning of summer, actually, I took on the job of managing our road crew for Blackburn. Because we had like a marketing position open up, and then they didn't hire throughout the summer. So I filled in with managing our road crew, which was my old job, which was really cool. Like it felt very serendipitous. I was like, I loved doing it. I would love to manage them. So I did.
Is that what you were doing when I saw you at Pride?
Yes, that's what I was. Oh, not at Pride. I was just there at Pride. That wasn't, we weren't at that event, but that's what I've been doing at like Hogs for Hospice. I was there hanging out and stuff like that, managing the team who has my old job essentially, it was 5 of them, and they did a great job, and I'm very proud. We had a good summer. Carol Fair just wrapped up. That was like their last event, so it was fun. So that took up a lot of time too, and that's not really something that they recommend you do in like within our company. At least they're like, we don't want you to have an on-air job plus another job with us. Like it's not. We don't do that because you get burnt out, especially doing the morning show. They were very, very like protective of that, and they were very willing to help. So then again, my grandma she was sick, had the surgery, mom was away, and she ended up passing at the beginning of July, which was, like grief and loss. You think, especially because she was sick for a long time and the surgery happened, and you think you're prepared. Thank you. I still don't feel like it happened, unfortunately. Like I still, when people say like, I'm sorry, I'm still like, I don't know what, for what? Like I do. It's just, she was essentially my only grandparent, and it just makes you lose like a real piece of yourself. And then now my mom, of course, lost a major piece of herself. So I'm losing pieces of my mom. Like, you know what I mean? So it's been really tricky. And I just knew, listening back to podcast episodes and how you're 9 episodes in, right? You said?
Yeah, you're 9.
This is 9. Yeah. So what was the time, like how long ago did the first episode come out? No.
So I shot the first one in April. And then I think I recorded, I want to say I recorded the first 3 episodes before it was out.
Smart. Yeah. Good. So, okay. So it's relatively young, which even mine is 2 years old, and it's still very
6
young.
months, I think.
Within a few months, I was listening back to episodes going, who the fuck is that person? Like, what the fuck is she saying? And like, I have an episode with my ex-boyfriend, like, which I'll never delete. Like, it's just, you listen to like these versions of yourself. And I started doing that when I took a little break, and I was like, I am having a hard time figuring out who I am, let alone to put it out there. But I mean, that's something that I've always been very open about, is like, this is just everything that I'm saying is subject to change. Like, I know that, but I was just listening to myself be so like certain in certain things and being like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then death just kind of like, it shakes everything, right? Your entire sense of like what you know for certain is like, you know what's for certain? Grandmas. And then they leave or they die. So it just kind of shakes everything. And I just knew that if I came back, I was just going to say a bunch of shit that I wasn't super confident in. Anyway, I'm not. And the branding, again, is flimsy. And I think that just made the entire thing a little flimsy. And I'm not wanting to make a bunch of excuses. It's just, I do miss it. And I've had people ask where it went. I just know that if I were to do it now, it wouldn't be very genuine. And I've definitely been in the studio interviewing people going like, why are you talking when I'm going through so much? Do you know what I mean? Which is so shitty. And you do have to be able to like differentiate, you know, your professionalism from your whatever. But when you're having these conversations, these very raw, real conversations. So the next one, the idea is to talk to somebody when the time comes about specifically grief and kind of what's been going on. I have a couple people lined up who are like, they're trauma specialists and whatnot.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
grief.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're counselors. So I do like those kind of conversations too. I love them because I feel like I'm getting free therapy and then other people are hearing it. And it's like, I do have some therapist friends who have been on before too. But this one, I think I need an outsider. So we'll see. That's what's going on with it. I guess that's the only real update I have.
That's
I just want it to be genuine because it's such the things we talk about. Like I'm asking people, what age did you lose your virginity? Like we're talking about weird shit and like, not weird exactly, but like weird shit. And so to want them to do that, but not be willing to do that myself is like not fair. So I'm just kind of getting around to the point where I think I can start to acknowledge that like, this stuff happened and that I'm a different person and that it fucking sucks and it's weird shit, man.
when you do your it's like I love shows like that where they're like really just like out there and talk about things that like people wouldn't expect you to talk about and you're just kind of covering everything instead of, you know.
I feel like we do talk about sex a lot, to be honest. It seems to come up often and I listen back and been like, why did I say that? Like, fuck. My mom, I know, listens to it. Well, not really so much anymore, but she was on an episode and then she didn't care after that.
So yeah, that's funny. Hey, some people like everybody listens to your first one, and then you just get like it's
the stragglers.
Yeah. I find like the people I know, like they like listen to like the first one or like they'll share it and support it, but like they're not like listeners. Yeah. And like then I'll get messages from other people and they're like, no, I listen to like everyone.
Yeah, people who
like,
surprise
cool.
you. Yeah. I agree in that. Like the numbers were doing fine. Like honestly, for it being like a solo podcast that I know you get it. You totally produce, edit everything, record, come up with the questions, schedule do the promo for, like you do it totally independently. It's a lot. And I just feel like if you want to do it right, it only has to feel right to you. So that's why I'm kind of justifying the break. But at the same time, you do have these people who you like just do not expect to like care. I know that I get most of my listeners not even, because we do get to promote it through the radio station.
Yeah, of course.
I do mention when there's like a new episode or something. I don't push it very heavily on air, but I do on my own like social media. That's where most of my listeners come from, my personal social media, which is cool because it's like, fuck, these are people who just like are just interested in me as a person, who are like tuning in, and then they become interested in whoever I'm talking to, which is super, super cool. I know that I've connected people, which I fucking love. Yeah. That's the whole point, right? Love it.
I think the cool thing about this show is the listeners come from the guests. So like you're going to bring in however many new listeners. And then
you're just like the facilitator, right?
Yeah.
You're just there.
And everybody's just like bringing in their own listeners.
Yeah.
And like every episode has like, there's a lot of listeners that are only going to listen to this episode just to hear from you only.
Sure. But it opens a door, right?
For sure.
And that's happened before. I actually have had a few people who are local, they're from other places. Like I've had a few listeners from India who live here who have like messaged me to say I listen because it helps with language, but also because you're local and it's interesting to hear about what's going on locally, feeling like you're kind of an outsider. That kind of thing. Somebody left a review not too long ago kind of saying something like that on Apple Podcasts. And I was like,
oh, that's cool.
Changed my whole day. Like it was like, oh my gosh. And then I think I met the same person when I was getting sushi. He came up to me and said, I'm listening to your podcast right now. And I total stranger. And I was like, oh, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. That is when you're like, holy fuck, I'm never going to stop doing this. Like this just feels so good. But
yeah, like it's everything. Like it's always so much hard work to do anything. Yeah. And like, it's so like, I don't know, draining.
Yeah. But and when you get the tiniest bit of acknowledgement, you're just like, this feels so good. But then when it doesn't do well, it's also so crushing. And that with any art, right? Like, and you have to kind of place your own like scale of success, I guess, and happiness. And I think that was the other thing too, is that I just felt like there was this deterioration of self that was happening with this like weak ass brand that I put out. So it was like, I just need to stop it now before I try and sell something that I honestly I wouldn't buy.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's
because I can fake it and I don't want to with that.
No, for sure. Yeah. Cause it's not something like you're doing it for you. Right. I want to get into like the more like logistics of your podcast.
No, go ahead.
So actually, no, wait, one more question before that. So when you do like, you'll have more than one guest on certain episodes, or is it always one-on-one?
It's always been one-on-one, but I have had actually the one that I have had conversations about, the future one with the grief counselors and whatnot, she said, can I bring my coworker as well? Because she's very well versed in this. And I was like, yeah, we do have enough mics in the studio to have multiple. Yeah. But I don't think any more than 2 or 3. I forget now. 2 mics on that thing. I usually record those in Windsor at our Windsor studio, not Leamington. So
okay.
Yeah, we can kind of flip flop between anywhere we really need to, but
that's cool. Yeah. I was just wondering because you said like you get into like some crazy topics and like you're talking about like sex and like all this stuff.
Yep.
And like sometimes that's easier with like more than just one-on-one.
Oh, you know what? I'm totally blanking because when I decided to come back with this new thing, I had a group episode. We did like But it was one-on-one conversations, but we were all in the room together. So I had asked them, and most of them were friends, but some of them were people. Actually, one of them I had never met before, but now Bianca Stavina, she is a trauma specialist, and she is so knowledgeable. And I was like, you need your own podcast. You don't need... And I got that just from a little tidbit. So what I did was I made like a Google survey or whatever, and I had people who I put them all in a close friends list on Instagram, and I said, I'd like to have you on. If you are interested, please fill out this whatever. Just a little bit, again, most of them I knew, but just, some stuff about you, and then some of the topics that you would like to get to, whatever you want to say. And then I think my last question was like, if you had a giraffe, where would you hide it, or something stupid? But we had fun with it. And so I picked 5 of them, and we scheduled a time for everybody to come into the studio on like a Friday night. Yep. We actually used Dave Timo's big studio because it's very big. But one mic, and I had one mic behind the board. And we just I was like, hey, Batsy was my hairdresser who's amazing. I was like, you come do your 10 minutes. And I just did I asked them 2 questions based on what they had put in the survey, kind of essentially. Yeah, that's cool. So they were like 5-10 minutes just split between 5 people. So it was kind of cool because we had like a crowd though, and like people were commentating and like laughing and like, providing effects. And then I all these people ended up bonding between each other, which was really cool. So now they're all, kind of on the docket for future episodes. And Nuseba was on. She had never been on before. She was part of the group episode, and then she got her own episode, which is actually the most recent one, which was from end of June. But
I listened to tidbits of it when I was like prepping for our thing.
Yeah, she's just so entertaining as a person that you just don't even have to, even she could just sit on a mic and just talk about nothing, and everybody would just be like, "God, she's so funny. She's just so funny." Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she is great. She's very she's like she's really her own person.
She's so likable. She's just so it used to drive me a little crazy sometimes because she's the kind of person where like, no matter what she says, people are laughing and enjoying her. She's so she makes everybody feel so comfortable. She finds everybody so funny and people love her, where I was just like, why do I have to work so hard for people to like me? And my best friend is just so simple and everybody loves her. But no, she's amazing. She's really helped me grow as a person.
Yeah, I'm really excited to shoot their wedding.
Yeah.
It's going to be super
so
fun.
Cool. And I'll be there. We'll have fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a great day.
Yeah.
I love shooting weddings. Honestly, that's probably like my favorite. It's the hardest. It's the most stressful.
Yeah.
It's the most daunting. It's the most exhausting.
Tedious.
It's like, but it is the funnest.
Yeah.
And it's definitely like the most rewarding too.
Sure. Because everybody loves the photographer.
Yeah.
I actually, so my friend Vanessa, her coworker was getting married and they asked her to shoot, and she does photography kind of miscellaneously, but she was kind of doing it as a favor more so. So she's the one who lived in Vancouver, so she was flying home, and I was like, I gotta see you. And she's like, well, I could use a second shooter on paper to get you into the wedding. So her and I shot this wedding.
No way.
I don't know what the fuck it was. It was in somebody's backyard. It was pretty low key, and like the bride and groom were awesome, and I was just kind of there to whatever. But like the pictures came out so good, and everybody was so nice. They're like, "Oh my god, the photographer!" And I'm like, "I'm not a photographer," but yeah, totally. Like you're so loved as the person who's like providing that service, right?
Yeah.
So it's very valuable, and yeah, I understand why people need photographers. Well, I feel like there was a time where not so much, but now it's like, no, we need it.
Yeah.
Not your phone ain't gonna do it.
I'm coming off a couple week break from weddings. I just shot one on Saturday to kick off like 8 weeks in a row.
Wow.
But I just had a few weeks off because I did a big double weekend, and which was great. But it's double weekends are a lot, and I was like switching between mediums. So like one day was photo, and then one day was video.
Did you like that better, being able to split it up, or would you rather just like keep it one? Personally,
on a double back to back, doing both is a lot.
Yeah.
Because like you have to completely like I don't know, just like the
you're looking
prep
through the
is
lens
a lot.
different, right?
Yeah. And just like the prep for it's a lot. Like you're prepping for 2 totally different jobs.
True.
But you like you're shooting like a 12-hour day,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to do another 12 to 14-hour day.
Yeah.
So everything has to be prepped for both days beforehand.
And you
know
gotta
what
act
I
like
mean?
the day before didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
We got two different sets of couples. Yeah. I imagine that would be incredibly tricky.
Yeah.
The prep, I guess I don't really think about that, but you would hope that your professional photographer has done some prep. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You have to prep so like if anything goes wrong, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like for like a family shoot at the park, something goes wrong, whatever. Like it's no big deal. Like you can take a few minutes to adjust.
A lot less pressure.
Worst case,
Yeah.
you can just do it another time.
They're only gonna have their first kiss once, right?
Yeah, like a wedding day, like nothing can be redone. You
Yeah.
have to kill it. Like
I was just before I came here, I was watching. I like those Hollywood Reporter roundtable interviews with like actors or whatever. I was watching a director one, and it was like Martin Scorsese and Greta, and then all these other names that I hadn't heard of, but I have heard of their movies, and they were talking about how. Everybody thinks that if you had it your way and like you wanted to make a movie or do whatever kind of shoot you wanted to do, that you would want all the time in the world, but you actually do need those condensed periods of time. Like you do need a deadline. You do need, because it's part of actual freedom. Because like if you just stretched it out, like you're actually just, it's not, you do need the pressure and the time crunch, I guess, which I imagine when you're doing weddings, it's like,
yeah,
you take something
move.
that's going like this, and then you just get it. There's a reason why you never really like see the photographer, and then you also see them everywhere. You know? Like they're everywhere and they're nowhere at the same time. It's pretty impressive.
I usually don't give myself like deadlines and things for personal work. I just try to stay on myself, but I do have, if with books that I'm doing, sometimes I get a grant. And you have a deadline because you have to put it out before a certain amount of time if you got the grant. So it gives you a deadline on like personal work.
I didn't know that.
I'm awaiting a grant right now for my upcoming book.
Okay.
So if I do get the grant, now I'm on a timeline. The book has to be done within like it's long though. It's like 6 to 12 months you have.
Wow.
But yeah.
Book too, and that itself has its own like time constraints within it, does it not? And
yeah.
I feel like a lot of what you do is probably lining up schedules and times and such. And so do you often have to say like no to a project or no to a wedding or something like that because you got somebody else's wedding? Or
yeah, for sure, because you can only do one a day.
Yeah. How do you get comfortable with telling people no? Somebody who wants you specifically, how do you get comfortable saying?
I hate turning down weddings. Yeah. Almost everything else can usually be a different day.
Sure.
It's like very rare that events can't.
Yeah.
But like if I can't do an event, like it sucks, but like not being able to do a wedding like really sucks. Because like, can you get married next weekend? I'm free still.
Yeah. Have you ever had somebody maybe like move a wedding or consider your timeline more than?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not.
That's flattering.
Not for sure. That's super flattering. They didn't like cancel their day.
Sure.
But they like reached out and they're like, we're looking at these 2 days, and I'll be like, well, I'm booked on
which
this one.
works for you.
And then they
love that.
book the other one so they can get me.
Wow.
But I hate that when I can't do a wedding. So for Saturdays from like whatever April till October, I'll only book a full day wedding up until like, if I had a Saturday open this September, which I do not, I would book it like now because we're already in September.
Yeah.
I'll take something small.
Sure. You're not doing months in advance. And I get that.
Only full day weddings for like years out. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Because, like you want to save them,
Yeah.
For your podcast, who does do you do all the editing and everything?
100% me. Everything is me. Sourcing music because I play local artists as well on it as like segue music. I do that. I always seem to do that. Seems to be the last thing I do because I do find that a lot of people are like, oh my God, yeah, take my music, like whatever. So I can kind of get that part together. It's usually I will record the interview X amount of days. I was doing it bi-weekly. Yeah, bi-weekly it would be. And then now it's just nothing. But yeah, bi-weekly was a lot. And I kind of had like this schedule and then it totally got fucked up with the new job, the added job. But I would record the interview like a week prior, sometimes even less. But I would try it because it would come out on Thursday. So I would try to have it done by at least the Friday prior. And then I would spend Monday, Tuesday editing. And I would try to, because it takes hours to edit. So I would try to break it up. I do like half the interview Monday, edit, half the interview Tuesday, and then I would start sourcing music probably around that time.
Smart.
So yeah, but then it would be out by Thursday, write the bio, do all that kind of stuff, which is the little tedious stuff is the stuff where you're like, fuck, I got to find your Instagram. Like, fuck.
I know, man. Writing
the
post.
last thing.
Like I do 2 posts for every guest. So I do like, I'll post like a bunch of pictures of you on Monday and then I'll do your post when it's live on Thursday.
Yeah.
So to write it out 2 times. I've gotten better at it over so many years.
You do pick up like the flow of it, but there was a time where I really had it down pat, and then when it started to kind of fall apart and I like life was just falling apart, I was like, you got to stop right now or else you're going to make a mistake and
for sure.
something like that, or you're going to call somebody you're going to have the wrong music for the wrong thing, and it's just, they're little things that people wouldn't care about, but it would be a sign to me that like we're deteriorating fast.
No, for sure.
You know what I mean?
You're smart with the way you edit. So like obviously my whole life is editing as a photographer.
I believe you.
And like say, if there's something that's going to take 8 hours to edit it, if I were to sit down and try to edit it in one day, like that'd be death. Like fuck that. I would never do that.
Like absolutely kiboshes like any kind of like motivation you have to do it. When you have to think about like, I had one time I interviewed somebody and I guess I recorded it in the wrong format, which is like Radio 101. Like it was really bad. And so we came out really robotic and tinny, so I couldn't put it out. So that person couldn't come back because I had recorded it weeks in advance too. We were so prepared. I had a bunch like kind of lined up, and by the time this one was specifically going to come out, something went wrong. It happens. So I had somebody come in on a Tuesday, and I had the episode out by Thursday. But it was like sweating in the studio, like practically in tears, just like cutting and pasting and just like making decisions of like, you know what, it just doesn't matter that she said but or there was this long pause. Just leave it. Just like who cares? Yeah. You do have to kind of like set your expectations realistically when you're working on a time crunch, which I'm sure is also a huge part of what you do. I
try to like let my clients know, like, so for weddings, I say that it's going to be 3 months. It'll never be 3 months. But now I don't have to rush and I can do a good job.
Which is good.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's always better to pleasantly surprise people.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like I try to do like 6 weeks at like the 7 weeks at the most, but usually it's around like the 4 week period. It depends on how busy things are, but like never 3 months.
Yeah.
But just in case, like, cause I'd rather like on Monday, like, okay, it's time to start work. Like I'm excited to edit this wedding, but only for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Cause if I go longer than that, like now I'm going to switch and I'm going to edit like this video instead for a little bit. Cause if I have to edit just one thing for that long, like you're going to start to like, it's not going to be good anymore. It's going to
melt together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're looking at the same faces over and over again.
Yeah.
Just in like slightly different. Yeah. I imagine that is, it's good that you have that down pat though, because I feel like that's even something I'm recently learning is like how to not get into this set 100% system and like accept that there are going to be some days and some hours that just go, but you can't also give yourself too much leniency.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
That's one thing that I have been a little concerned about is I feel like I took this podcast break, the first one after the whole rebranding thing. That would have been from the end of October until February. And I was really like pushing this idea in my head that like I've been going through a lot and it makes sense. And not that that's not true or anything like that, but when I came back and then after death kind of makes everything else just seem like, what was I so stressed about? Like,
like
do you know what I mean?
Like matters.
I've been pretty numbed out in that regard and it's not totally healthy and I'm working on it. But like after that, it's like, okay, no, now I have an actual reason to like really take a break. What was I doing before? But I mean, you can't beat yourself up about it. So
no.
I don't know. For whatever reason at that time, I needed that break. And whether it was because I was going through a lot or whatever, doesn't really matter in the long run because I'm alive. Like, and I'm, having at least able to see it in that regard and not just like hate myself for, I don't know, you do have to have patience with yourself and like a lot of appreciation for the process, I guess. But I'm sitting here like looking at all your pictures like, yeah, you fucking know that. Like, what am I saying? I'm like a very small example of this, but you're very quintessential. Like, I imagine that there are days where you just like are like, God, I just hate what I did, or like, but you can't harp on it. It's
no, you gotta move on.
You got all these framed beautiful things. It's like obviously these are great examples of like when you're doing the right thing and when you feel like you're at your best. But just as like artists, it's really hard to see you at your not best,
which is most of the time.
Yeah. And that's what people don't think. And
but most of the time's not up on the wall. So like an outsider's like, every time you look at somebody like, oh, they're perfect. And like, you see your own mistakes only.
You're your worst critic. Yeah. Actually, I do have a question for you because again, back to the personal branding and stuff like that. Social media, if you've been doing this for as long as you've been doing it, then of course you've seen the trajectory and how things have changed. And
I hate it all.
A lot of these platforms, the most successful ones are very visual. So being a visual artist, I mean, how do you, again, I'm just so curious about how you don't get discouraged when you see, people, not when you see people doing well, because of course nobody wants to say, oh, I'm so jealous of somebody for their success, but like that's what social media does to you. You look at these people who are doing what you're doing and you're instead of saying, why don't I have this? Why haven't I done this for myself? You're like, why do you get this? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, 100,000%.
It's a constant fucking battle. Like,
yeah, I know. I just, for my personal work, like if I don't grow on Instagram like these other people,
sure.
For my personal, I don't care. I'm going to do the work I want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to shoot. I've never shot for Instagram. And I know that if I did, maybe it could be a lot bigger, but I'm not taking vertical pictures when I want to shoot it horizontal because Instagram's not going to be around forever. But like when I make a book, that's going to be around forever.
Yeah.
And I want it to be like the best it can be. So like, screw it if it doesn't blow. But I do know from like just, being in like the, I don't know, in the field
industry, yeah.
I do know like what is going to do good on Instagram.
Sure.
So when I do things for my clients, I do, because like there's no like love in it for me. Like
sure.
I can just do like a good job for them.
And whatever their use for it is that's their journey.
Yeah. And I'll do like the trends and like the things that are going to blow them up and like the things that are going to be good for them.
So interesting that you think of that. Yeah.
But I won't do that stuff for me if it goes against like what I believe in.
I didn't even honestly think about that is, you're also having to factor in like, what is this person's desire for these photos? Like what is their use for it? I guess, what do they want out of it? And is it, framed photos? Is it, a book? Is it their wedding slideshow? Is it Instagram? Which I think a lot of it is.
I got to follow trends in like what they want and what's going to be cool.
Yeah.
I have to put like, like the things that, so I just keep that stuff for my personal work. And like some things don't blow up on social media that I love to do. And for my stuff, like I'll just do it. And then when I'm working for somebody that wants to grow on social media, I'm going to do the things for them that are going to blow up.
Sure.
Sure.
So. Oh, it's so interesting. I'm just curious. I don't know. Social media has made everything, and this is from somebody who like specialized in social media for a little bit. And I did that, at the marketing agency. I went to school and did that kind of thing. Yeah. But now I would rather die than do it. And it's only because of how much it's changed within the past few years. And people say, why don't you do freelance? You know what to do. And I'm like, because I don't want to. Yeah. I don't want to participate in it. Whatever is happening. Even when I was doing it, I didn't even really want to do it.
It's so hard.
It's so competitive and it's ever changing. Like I actually have, again, we're going to go back to my theories, but I had this theory when I was working at the agency that I was working at, because I did a lot of Facebook advertisements, a lot of business manager and stuff, which even now, like it's like Meta Business Suite. It was called Creator Studio. Now it's called like, so I have this, I'm sure you do. I have this idea, and this is how it felt at least while I was doing it. The agency I was working at was like, hey, if you want to do any of like their courses, any like Google courses, if you want to do any whatever, like we'll help you, we'll support you, we'll pay for it essentially. So I was like, you know what? I am interested because I was doing so much Facebook marketing, paid marketing mostly, that I was like, how do you fucking use this network? Where are their numbers coming from? What does any of this mean? And I'm not just saying this as an advertiser, like I'm saying as somebody who's very curious about what is happening with this network. Because Facebook, if people don't know, they have their whole Meta now, I guess. At the time, at least, again, 2019, they had this crazy ad network that was so hard to use. And I was constantly trying to do like get Facebook certified, it was called, to be like an official advertiser. And like the courses and the lectures or whatever, the lessons were so vague. It was kind of like Facebook is representative of like a marketplace and like, like all these graphics, and I'm talking as if like I was the moderator or whatever. And like, it's all automatic, right? And this is 2019. So this is like pre-COVID, pre-Zoom, all that stuff when that was like the normal. But this, and I was just like watching this stuff going, they're not teaching anything. They're actually just making it more confusing because they're trying to say that our ad network is so straightforward. But I think that there's a lot of not great means of obtaining information.
Yeah.
And I know everybody knows this and this is common sense, but I'm saying this as somebody who was looking at it years
100%,
ago and just saying, why are you making this so hard for me as somebody who's like trying to understand it and how to maximize your product? Why are you making it so hard to understand? I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just like, I'm typing in people's interests based on who the client is. And then it's like saying, okay, your number went from 50,000 views to 60,000 and stuff. What the fuck does any of that mean? Like, I know what it means, but how are you guaranteeing this? Where are the metrics? Like that's honestly what it is. Their metric system, nobody really knows what it is, and they won't be transparent about it.
Yeah, I don't think that they want
even
to
when
tell
they're teaching you about it, they
Yeah.
will not be transparent about it. And this was again in 2019. It has changed 1,700 times since then.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I would go to launch an ad, there was a new rule, there was a new parameter, there was a new like there was always something that you were just sitting there like crossing your fingers, like please just go through right now. And sometimes the ads would take a week to go through. Sometimes they would take 30 seconds. And I found one little way to get straight through to Facebook ad support, because or else you submit something and they maybe email you back within X amount of time. I found one, and it's gone now. I've actually looked into it. One way to get a direct person, like a representative, which it was probably still automatic, but to get somebody to answer questions for me. And I had it written down, like, press this button and then hit this link and then go to there and then send a message to this person. And like it was the only streamlined way to get somebody to answer questions, and even they still wouldn't answer it. But if you finally got through to somebody, then that was a good sign.
Yeah.
And at least there was like documented conversation. Like, God, I can't tell you how confusing Facebook's ad network is, and it's intentional. And this was years ago, and this is why I would never want to get back into it. Because as much as they make you think that you know what you're doing, you don't know what they're doing, because they're changing it every 30 seconds. They don't. What are they called? Like, why can't I post on my own Facebook page?
No, like, so because like a big thing that I really started implementing in my business this year as like a videographer is I started making a lot of like short form video content in Reels for companies instead of...
Which is this whole freaking thing in itself, the way TikTok and Reels and the way that everything has become so short. But you would know because you're in the industry. instead of making these commercials that are 4 minutes long and like horizontal, and I still have
do
like
those.
a plot essentially.
Yeah. And like those big, like these big production videos, and they're still great, and I still do them, and people like put them on their websites and whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I also do like a lot of the short form ones, and I do them, and they do good on their channels and all that stuff, and I make the videos, and a lot of my clients ask me, can you just like do the whole social media for me? Can you post it and do like the following and like do the hashtags? And I'm like, hell no, I'm not doing that.
Because it's totally different. Like it's one thing to make something that you know is going to do really well once, but like to try and put out organic social media is totally fucking different.
I'm not running their social media.
No.
I'll just give you the videos.
I get that all the time. Well, I used to get it, not so much anymore. And what I loved about Mix's RIP social media was that I walked into it and it had like 50,000 followers. And all we had to do as hosts was like, we're not managing insights. We're not doing any of that stuff that I used to do. We're just doing straight up like posts, but I get to bring in what I now know does organically well. But that was never like my specialty. So I mean, thankfully Mix, we have a lot of very loyal listeners who were huge participators on our social media, that we would almost like kind of like cater to them. I was gonna say pander, that's not the right word, but cater to them. And we would want to have, we do know who our demographic is, right? Like we can see that in our social media insights, but also, based on like our just actual demographics, we know 35 to 55-year-old women who are likely mothers, like that's who we know is listening.
Is that your demographic?
Yeah, it's women. It's moms, a lot of moms, and a lot of people between 35 and 55.
Really?
Yeah, we know that. I mean,
it's funny because you're 10 years younger than...
Right? That was a big question. Well, this is so interesting because I started, again, COVID, weird time. We've been through that 100 times. But I was really nervous about how I was going to be like interpreted, because I was 22 when I started and Jay was 39, I guess he would have been. And he had been on Mix for long enough, and all of his co-hosts, became like known, I guess, with him, especially like Jay and Morgan. That was huge. Yeah. Morgan now has her own show on country by herself, which is amazing. But Jay is just such a natural, I guess, that he made it really easy. And I will say I hate when people do this, but when people say, well, I'm an old soul, like, don't fucking, it's one thing if somebody else says you're an old soul, you can't say that about yourself. But I will say, I think it's icky. I will say, I am the youngest of 4 sisters. My oldest sister is 10 years older than me.
Okay.
She got pregnant when she was 16. Like, I've seen a lot of life through vicariously.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot. And so walking into it, I know how to get along with people of any age. Worked at the mall, retail will make you kind of become anybody for anything.
Yeah, for sure.
So the radio thing, I was nervous because they said just be yourself. Like, that's all we want is for you to just be yourself. But
that's why it seems like they almost like they didn't, but they kind of headhunted you in a way because they liked your personality.
Yeah. It was nice, and that's very flattering, and it's really paid off. And even like yesterday, I was at another. It wasn't a family reunion, but it was a different party, I guess. And this woman was like, I listen to you every morning and like, you do really good. You're really good. And I'm like, that's great. What does really good mean? Because I really don't mean, I don't know what that means. And you do, I don't know. There's an interesting kind of question about like, and I've had this conversation very stoned with one of my friends. She said like, how do you know where the radio stuff ends and you start? And I was like, the thing is, and this is rare, I work at a place that wants me to just be me. But like, I do remember there was a time when I was playing into like this little bit of a narrative that like Jay loves sports, loves football, big football guy, basketball, whatever. And I was like, oh, I just don't know anything about sports. But like, that's not true. Like I do. So like, I would just act like so uninterested in it for so long and then like make little jokes about like, well, you know, Jane is football or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I got to like within the past year, especially where I was like, why are you doing that? Like you do like baseball. Shohei Ohtani, huge fan. I love him. But like that kind of thing. And that was one of the times when I caught myself and I was like, okay, yeah, well, I don't know why you're doing this. And we have conversations about this. We do weekly air checks with my program director, Fat Matt, and then also with, his name is Dan Wiley. He's in London. He's our high-up program director for all of our stations. We do weekly calls where we talk about like content and creativity and stuff like that. So I remember having a conversation about that, like what are our traits? What do we want to lean into? Who are we actually? And we do this regularly, like kind of training in that regard, which is cool. Because I'm sure not a lot of stations do that, but we do try because it is important.
For sure,
I guess, especially with us, with two people, it is pretty important. So yeah, I don't know where that started and where that ended, but
that's okay.
It is tricky. It's tricky to, you know, if there comes a time when I'm not doing this anymore, like who is that? But I think it's actually the same person. Yeah, I do. Yeah, like I think that especially through podcasting and stuff too, when you get to be yourself and then just like put it out there and you know, and then people react to it, good or bad, but at least you know you were doing you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm never lying about, you know, that's the one thing I would never sell something I couldn't buy, even me as a person. Yep. Yeah.
That's cool that you just stay true to yourself, especially like with so many different listeners and you're part of like this big company and organization. Like it's not just you. You know, even your podcast isn't just you because it's under them, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So does your podcast go on the radio or it's only on like all the like Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff?
It's on all the streaming platforms, yeah. I don't know what you use. I use Podbean to distribute it.
I was using Podbean, but Podbean, this is going to make me sound cheap. Podbean is $10 a month or whatever the hell it is. Sure. Spotify for podcasters, we'll post it to every other one too, and it's
which
free.
Is fascinating, right? Yeah. See, as you know, radio people, we can't totally adhere to Spotify all the time. They're the enemy, you know. But no, for sure. But I mean, that's a whole conversation. But Podbean, I'm not paying for it, so I don't care.
Yeah. Podbean is great. But once I started, I was like, wait a minute, I don't need to.
I
use
could just
this.
be doing this for a little tiny extra effort. I know.
And it does it. So I think this podcast goes to, honestly, you know what's funny is the most listeners, a lot of them come from YouTube.
Interesting.
Which is very interesting.
I love seeing the metrics in that regard, where people come from. I don't have my phone, but like the Podbean app will show me like a map. Well, you would know, I guess, but a map of like all the countries where it's listened to. And I just like, oh my gosh, this is where people are listening. Even if it's one download, I'm like, holy shit, there's somebody in like Indonesia listening to this right now. I actually think I have 17 listens in Indonesia right now. But that kind of thing. Like, and you know what else has been super interesting is seeing where people are coming from and how many people are coming while I'm not talking about it at all. Like I've been real silent about it since I took the break because I'm not totally ready yet. But I like the other day got 22 downloads. Like, and I was like, for what? What happened? But I think, and again, it doesn't exactly tell me, but what I think what happened is somebody found it and then listened to 22 episodes. Yeah, in a day, I don't know, but like maybe a couple people, I don't know, but like 22 downloads during absolute silence when I'm not promoting it. I'm quiet on my own social media, just been kind of laying low. I'm like, I gotta get back to this shit. I love it. Like, what do you do? Sure. Or you hate listening? Like, is this a lawyer? Like, what's happening? Did I say something? Fuck. That kind of thing. Yeah,
it's funny when things surprise you like that. Because, like, I figure, so, like, the video aspect, when I listen to a podcast, the only time I ever go really look at the video is if, like, say we pulled something up on the TV.
And we're like, referencing it.
Or, like, something big happened where, like, I want to see, like, their facial expression to, like, what was just said. Yeah. And, like, on Spotify and YouTube, you could, like, you could check quickly. Yeah. But, like, YouTube, like, to watch the whole thing, that's it's
a commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that I do a lot of... if there's a video podcast, I'll put it on and I'll kind of I purposely put on video podcasts while I'm doing other things so that if something happens and I want to like peek, a lot of cleaning, like peek my head around and be like, okay, and then just continue. I don't know. Some of them I feel like you can tell that they do cater to visual more than just straight up audio.
For sure.
And people all the time are like, why don't you record? Like, why don't you do video, whatever? I'm like, because it's just me. Like, you don't get it. And like, it's just me. And what I do enough right now is already enough. So, but I am interested. It is a nightmare. And that's what I hear from everybody. So unless you have a whole production team behind you, then like, what am I doing?
Or you do video for a living and like, video's that's the harder part of it. And like, it's, like the audio is obviously really hard too, but like most of that comes after.
Oh, sure.
The videos while it's happening.
Yeah.
And like, because I do it for a living, it's like pretty easy for me.
Yeah.
But it's still a fucking nightmare.
I know. People have asked me if I would be interested in going into TV, like being on TV or like news or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, not at all. Because with radio, even when it's live, and people, does that freak you out live? No, it does not at all, because I'm not looking at people and I'm not looking at a camera and there's no teleprompter and there's no this and there's no this person trying to get my attention. It's literally me and a microphone. It's exactly this, essentially. Yeah. One less person, actually, because I don't see Jay. But I'm doing my thing and there's no pressure there that I'm like, I love radio for what it is. I love what it offers. I love that it is a medium that is still around and has withstood time, and there are changes, but the basis of what radio is getting information out. It's prehistoric. It's archaic in the best way. Yeah. So that's what I love. When you start throwing in what I look like, like visually what mattered, like I don't know. Maybe I'm a little too shallow in
that's
that
the
regard.
other thing about like this too is like I got to make sure like on my checklist is like check yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
Like I have that on there because like there can't be anything like, you know, and just like so many little things.
Make
like,
sure your table's clear, like you said. Like,
everything has to be clean. Like we wouldn't need this TV. Sure. We wouldn't like, there's just so much like right now I have the camera up on the computer. Right. And it's just like so many little things. So I don't know if you know, but with digital cameras, they only record for 29 minutes and they stop.
Really?
So every 29 minutes you would have to start the recording. So over here you wouldn't have noticed probably, but every 20 minutes or so I turn it on and off.
Got you. Wow.
Yeah. It's
so funny because I'm thinking of recording my podcast and I'm like, our studio's lifted a little bit. So I'm always like, like I'm laying right back and people are like, everybody's like, how do you sit? How do I come up to the microphone? I'm like, move it as close to your face as possible. Make it seem like you're eating it and then just talk. And I'm like, chill. If you have to move this way, move this way. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's so chill. But then you're sitting here with like, again, video. So you're like, okay, we got to be, this far apart and we got to have this figured out. And oh my God, see? Why would I want that?
I know. It's a lot. And actually what's funny is right now we have to take a little break because I have to change the battery on the camera.
Oh, hey, look at that.
When you guys record your morning show, do you not wear headphones?
No, we do, but we're not recording. We're live.
You're live,
yeah. A lot of people say, "Is it pre-recorded?" I'm like, "No, bitch, it's not."
No, it's definitely
one aspect of it is recorded, which is Battle of the Sexes, and we do it live at 6:35, and then we play it 7:35, 8:35. But it's still from like 6:35. It's the same day. It's topical. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, so you did record it live at 6:35?
Yes.
And then you just because
it's like a game. The outcome is going to be the same. So why would we like just redo it? And fake it the second or third time? So we just record it and then. Yeah.
That's cool.
It's fun.
Then you can take like a couple-minute break.
It's like, between 8:30 because we do our little, Adele in with your news. And then Adele will do her headlines. And then music plays. And then Battle of the Sexes starts at 8:35 or 7:35. And then we can kind of fuck off until 8:50.
Oh, nice.
Do you know what I mean? So it's more like a 20-minute whatever. And we are doing
quick
things.
Or whatever?
We'll eat. We'll do things. And that's the interesting thing, too, is a lot of people think that, I'm sitting there and I'm talking for hours. And I'm like, no, I'm not actually. Most of my day is listening to music and commercials. Yeah. The amount of songs that I know just because I've heard them and they've absorbed it in my head and I'm like singing all the lyrics to Olivia Rodrigo and I'm like, when did I ever listen to this song? Oh, every single day. I just don't realize it. You tune out so much and you don't even realize it.
Yeah. She's one of those artists I don't listen to music like that, but I love her. She's the best.
She's got an album coming out in a couple days, and I love when there's new young people because we are a top 40 station, right? We're playing hits. So I love when there's something that comes out and you don't even have to say, "Isn't that good?" But you're like, "We fucking love Olivia Rodrigo. She's the Fiona Apple of today. We love this bitch, and we push her like she's And I love Miley Cyrus too. So we play Miley, and you don't have to fake it.
Yeah, you don't have to fake it. Yeah.
I
love that she a lot of Olivia Rodrigo songs. The slow one she's on the piano, but all the other ones are really rocky. There's a band and stuff. So it's
she just released the this one called Bad Idea, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God. It gets me so hyped.
Yeah.
I'm like, this little girl is going to make me start talking to my ex-boyfriend and like fuck around and like get myself in trouble. Shit, I'm being influenced by people younger than me. Fuck. Like,
yeah, she's like followed it up like that first album, which had like a lot of hits. Like she definitely wasn't a one-hit wonder.
Yeah, but they were soft though. A lot of it was really sad. Like it was very like 18-year-old sad, you know, but it's still so good. It's like, fuck. Have you ever seen the picture of Jamie Lee Curtis in Freaky Friday where she's like all rocked out and whatever? It's like me listening to Olivia Rodrigo in like my late 20s. Yes, that's me.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some cool things you've had an opportunity to do because you're in radio, like, or cool people you've gotten to meet,
talk to? Yeah. So again, COVID has kind of made things really interesting in that regard. One thing this is just like a little promo thing, but when I started, I can talk pretty openly about this, 89X leaving and, you know, that big change between that and then the river and stuff, people were like, wow, that's great for you guys. And we're like, sure, but like, this is also a huge loss. Like this is major and this is super unfortunate that it's happening. And it doesn't sure in a way it might open up some whatever, but like that sucks ass. And 89X was like the only station that was playing local music religiously. And before that happened, Jay and I were in talks about doing some kind of local feature to play local music. And we were talking to our program director and he was like, yeah, I agree. And he also came from 89X. Fat Matt was on 89X for a long time before he came over to Blackburn. And he's now my boss, but he was supportive of it. So we're like, okay, we're going to start doing something called the Homegrown Hit. So one of honestly, the coolest things, we play a local song. We still do it. We do a hit list every weekend when we count down the top 20 songs. Woo. And then we'll throw in a throwback. We'll throw in a hit bound track. And then we do a homegrown hit, which is a local showcase. And we'll do a little interview with them. Jay will call them. They'll do like a quick little bit about the song or about who they are, where they're from. Yep. And this is what's so cool is that it was gone after 89X. Like so much local music was just gone and like floating and what to do. So we've been trying to like, come send us your music. Like we want to hear it. We want to play it. We don't really care what the format is as long as it's not like straight up, you know, aggressive rap. Like we can kind of swing it. But we do have a lot of very local, very talented local rappers as well. But that has been cool because like we've watched some people kind of take off and we don't want to say it's because of us, but we got to kind of be there at the beginning. Yeah. Your battery?
No. I didn't need it when we did it. Sorry.
You just did it. That's a little battery. Yeah, it's that's been really neat. I have liked that a lot. We actually have a local band called New Friends, or the lead singer is local at least. They just invited us to like one of their shows in Detroit, which like when we first got to know them, they were like starting out essentially. They were kind of around. They were putting music out and they were very talented. But within the past 2 years, we've seen them just like take off, and we were just kind of there at the beginning, I guess, or our beginning. They helped us begin / we helped. I don't know. It was just really cool. So like in a couple weeks, we're gonna go see their show in Detroit.
That's awesome.
And like they're good people and it's fun. So that I really like. The podcast has obviously been awesome. It's been very fulfilling. Cool things. Barbie was honestly really cool because we just got to see it like the Thursday ahead of the premiere, which was neat. So we got to go in Friday morning and talk about it. But then we're like, well, we're not going to spoil it. But like, holy fuck.
I didn't see it.
Oh, it's something.
I do want to see it.
Yeah.
I just didn't have time. Is it still at the show?
Yeah, it is. It is. But it's coming to streaming in like a couple, oh my God, I think like next week or something like that.
So the problem is my wife went and saw it without me, and then
you just
then my like little sisters went and saw it too. Okay. So then I was like, well,
what are you gonna do?
That was like the people to see it with.
Yeah, you're right. It was cool, and it's a lot more like it invokes a lot more thought than you would expect.
Okay.
I guess, and I guess because it was when things have that much like promo behind them and that much appeal and like pop culture and stuff, you would think that it would just kind of be like a Super Mario Brother movie, you know what I mean? But which
was also great.
I'm sure it was great.
You didn't see it?
I didn't see it. No.
Honestly, it was like, what a surprise. Yeah. It was probably like how the Barbie movie was for a lot of people.
Okay.
I saw a lot of like grown men just like say like the Barbie movie. They're like, yeah, that was like pretty good actually. You know?
Which has been interesting. With any of these things, it's so interesting to see the people who are like purposely a hater.
Yeah.
And you know, people are choosing very specific gross reasons to hate this movie. So it is good when you talk to people who are like, oh no, I just wanted to see it, and then also have their own. It's the kind of movie though, I will say, when we first saw it, I almost like didn't even know what to say about it, because it was like, I feel like this is a movie you got to watch more than once to get like the full whatever, but it was also because it was like the height of everybody talking about it. So you want to form your own opinion, but like you can't when you're listening to all these people. I will say Ryan Gosling was just something. Like he was just beyond an actor. He was a person who thinks he's a Barbie. I imagine it. There was a lot of undoing of that afterwards.
I don't doubt that it's great. I'm sure there's like you said, you got to watch it a few times to like really see like all like the messages they've
and with all the hype too. It was like, but that fucking, I call her Billie Eilish. That song, oh my God, from that movie, just immediate tears, just crying. She's got that ability to just make people fucking sob without even wanting to. But the song from the movie, it's like, I can't hear it. As soon as that little piano thing starts on TikTok, I'm like, nope, can't do it. I can't hear it. I can't hear it. I'll start crying. But it's good. That was cool. We talked to Sarah McLachlan on the phone. That was neat.
That's cool.
It was fun. And I remember telling my friends that. I was like, I talked to Sarah McLachlan on the phone. She's really down to earth. And they're like, who's that? And I was like, ask your mom. Ask your mom. She'll find it cool. Yeah, that was neat. My aunt was like crazy about it. She loves Sarah McLachlan. So I told Sarah McLachlan, I was like, my aunt is a huge fan. She's going to be at your show. And she was like, oh my God, tell her to come say hi. And I was like,
no way.
Sarah McLachlan was really cool. She was actually very down to earth. She called us herself. Like we didn't have to go through like, whatever. I talked to Loud Luxury not too long ago, and they were pretty neat guys.
Oh my God, I shot them here at a Life in Color like 1,000 years ago.
Right? Yeah, and that's what I said. I was like, guys, you guys are like
right? That was them,
staple.
Right?
Yeah. Loud Luxury was here at Life in Color. I was on stage
with them at Life in Color. I was like in their DJ booth.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was crazy.
It's cool stuff. But doesn't that feel like so long ago?
Oh my God, that was like a different lifetime. I thought I was the shit back then. I was like on stage at Life in Color running around.
All things like considered in that time, you are the shit. That is like peak shit that you could be doing at that time. So good for you. Now you look back and you're like, huh?
Yeah, I was like 19 and I'm like, I'm on fucking stage in the DJ booth. Like, you know, like this is
people
sick.
Like throwing color.
Yeah. I was on stage so like I didn't get wet, which was nice, you know?
Oh my gosh, it gets cold. I've been on the other end of it. I don't think it was them. It was somebody else. And it was like the year prior, 2 years prior. And when you're covered in wet ass paint and it's dark and you're at the water, like it gets, people get sick, and I believe it.
I got the craziest story from that night. So just like really quick.
No, I want to hear.
So I'm shooting it, right? Mm-hmm. So like I'm not full of anything, and I parked in the casino. So I'm getting in my car at the casino, and these two people are covered in paint, and they're like, "Can we use your phone? We like lost our phone at the thing." And I'm like, "Yeah,
everything's
sure."
slippery. I'm telling you, everybody's losing everything.
Yeah. So I was like, "Yeah, sure," because 2 weeks ago I was downtown and my phone died, and I asked like 3 people to use their phone, like because she was my girlfriend at the time, was coming to pick me up, and she didn't know exactly where I was, and my phone died, and like 3 or 4 people said no to me and wouldn't let me use their phone. I was like, what the fuck? This is very weird.
I know.
So I was like, yeah, you can use my phone. And they're like, okay, we're trying to call a cab. And I was like, I'll give you guys a ride home. It was just a couple. They were like my age.
And covered in paint?
Covered in, so what we did was we went to a garbage can. I like adventures. We went to a garbage can in the casino.
Okay.
And we took the garbage bag out and we like dumped the trash like back in the thing and we laid the garbage bag on my back seat and I drove them home. And like, I was like, yeah, I just shot like the festival because they didn't know I was at the festival too because like I wasn't full of paint.
You weren't, disgusting, yeah.
So they're like, oh, thank you very much, whatever.
Oh my
and
God.
like, that's that. So this was 2016. So a couple months ago, like this March 2023, I get a message from the girl and she said, we made a promise to ourselves that night that if we ever get married, you're going to be our photographer.
Oh my God.
Because you drove us home and I'm shooting their wedding in like 5 weeks.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Holy shit. That is so cool.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that stuff.
That's like one of like the coolest stories.
Yeah.
So,
I like when people do that kind of like follow up stuff, and I love that. That's awesome.
I think I have a meeting with them tomorrow actually.
Well, hey.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
So
yeah,
it's
they probably
so
still
cool.
have the slime on them.
No, it was like,
nasty.
wow, I was like, that's so special. Like,
yeah, but that's how you build these connections, and that's something that I'm finding with radio and podcasts and stuff like that. Is that you get below the surface, right? Like, and I will. It is a skill. I will say to be able to interview and to host and to do that kind of stuff. It's a skill, and I do honestly think I'm very good at it. I know that my podcast has been good, like in terms of the format and the structure and stuff, and the way we've gotten so deep so fast. Because I have an ability to talk to people about below the surface shit and make it feel very normal. Like, and not like you're talking about what age you first masturbated. That was actually a real conversation.
You talked about that on your thing?
It wasn't intentional. It just came out. Like my friend, Josh Lowe and I, we were talking, and I don't know how it got brought up, but something about porn, something about introduction to porn, and it just kind of like came into this thing. And then he was like, well, I remember the first age I was. And I was like, well, I remember the first age I was. And then I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, did I just fucking talk about that? But like at the same time, who fucking cares? Like, so I know that there is vulnerability is not an easy thing, but it is necessary. And it's been really fulfilling, I guess, to whatever. And to have these kind of conversations and not feel weird about it. Like I could tell you like 50 weird things just off the top of my head right now, just because I want to. There is an aspect of like,
but that makes the episodes good though, like stuff like that for sure.
Yeah, it makes other people feel less weird about the stuff that they think makes them feel weird, and like that's the whole point, is just to say that like you might feel this very isolating thing is actually not isolating at all, and that's why people have actually asked like, will you go talk about this death and this grieving and this mourning and whatnot. When I said like I was looking for somebody, I think I put it on Instagram that I was looking, and I had a bunch of people reach out and like, hey, I'm fucking, my grandma died 2 years ago and I'm still struggling with it, or like my cousin or my whatever. And it's like, yeah, let's do it for that. Yeah. Because I need it, but I know that in the essence that I need it is the way that like everybody needs it. Everybody needs to hear this stuff.
When are you going to film that one or record it?
I was supposed to have already. So it's my bad. I don't know. The move has kind of really fucked everything right now. So once I'm a little more settled, I'm hoping that will, And even like, it's the kind of thing now where, again, like you feel kind of numbed out by so many things, and it's like, who cares? So many of the, and before my grandma passed, when she was like ill and like not well, instead of being super cynical and like angry, she just developed this like, whatever. And it was just so like enjoyable to be around. She was such an enjoyable person because things were so shit, but she was just so like, whatever. I just want to, have life, I guess. And so that's kind of been it's really like stuck around, just like this understanding of like, holy shit, things can be so bad, but like,
what a great lesson to learn,
right? Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people have that. But so if I put it out and let's just say like nobody listens to it, I don't care. Whatever. Who cares?
Do you check your analytics on all your podcasts?
I do, but not like super frequently. It used to be really religious. Oh, I had an episode go like not mini viral. My 16th episode, 14th episode, I invited somebody. Well, this was interesting. So she was actually another because I had her come on and, this was the tinny one. This was the one where everything sounded super fucked up. But we had such a good conversation, and she was somebody who I went to high school with, but we weren't friends in high school. But since high school, we've definitely bonded over like Essex being a very small town place.
You guys are the same age too?
She's a year older than me, but yeah, we were familiar. So I had her come on and we record this great episode. It doesn't work, fuck. But when she came back on, because she was like somebody who, she's very outspoken about abortion. She's very outspoken about like women's issues and a lot, and race, just everything. Yeah. So in those few months, the Roe v. Wade thing got overturned, George Floyd, like just all this kind of stuff was happening kind of in like a consecutive vaccine stuff, like a lot of controversial stuff. So she came back on, and then she found out she was pregnant again too. So like it was an interesting conversation because it was only like 3 months difference, but so much has changed. So we went back to talking about Essex, like I said, and just being from a small town and small town mentalities and whatnot. And I didn't really think all that much of it. Like I thought it was a great conversation. It was really fun. She's awesome. But then people hate listen to it. Like people from Essex. We did talk pretty transparently about some shit that happened in high school, like that we remember, like some pretty nasty stuff.
Like about certain people?
Well, I mean, nobody was mentioned by name. You can't do that. Yeah. Defamation, you can't do that. And we were careful. But there was like, I told this story about when I was in high school, and this is so funny. This is the kind of stuff that like you get deep fast, and to me it doesn't even seem deep anymore. But like when I was in high school, I had this situation where I had sent a nude to somebody, and I was in grade 9, and it got spread everywhere. And this was like at the dawn of nudes, like of like cell phone BBM nudes. So like it was like this whole big thing, and we were talking about that and like the how so much of the school was like in on all of this. Like there was like a network of nudes, of girls' nudes that was happening, and it was pretty nasty. So we were talking about that, and then we were talking about Essex having a pretty a history of having some pretty awful racist things happen and stuff like that. So we weren't necessarily naming names, but we were just kind of talking about circumstances that we witnessed. But we're also two white women, so it's like we can only commentate so much, but people were so mad. I heard nobody actually said anything directly to me. People said stuff directly to her. She was a little more outspoken in the episode. Yeah. But people listened. It got like 1,000 listens in a day. Wow. And I was like, that was the most I had ever seen. And I was like, okay. But I leaned into it and was just like, because so many people reached out and were like, fuck, I know that this happened. I didn't know the details, or like, I remember this happening, or this happened at my high school. Like I had people reaching out who like from high school who I barely knew, I forgot, or I didn't think liked me, or like, and we had real honest conversations about like how tough that time was and how the circuit, it was so fulfilling. Like that was so great. It totally counterbalanced that people were upset about it. But again, nobody said anything to me. I just heard that people were very upset.
Yeah.
So I kind of liked it. I was like, this is neat. Like, this is cool because people are now, at least they're listening. And then in the next episode, I was like, hey, listen, if that was the only episode you listened to, I really recommend just like listening to any podcast where you're listening to people talk about experiences that are their own. And whatever happened in high school. I'm not expecting apologies. I'm not, looking for anything specific, but that episode was interesting because it took off, and people still to this day, this was over a year ago, still will be like, yeah, so your episode with Cam, like blah, blah, blah. Like they think that is the episode. I think they think that's the only thing I put out. And I'm like, sure. Okay. Whatever. I don't know. It's just interesting to see people, their reaction to your stuff, I guess, showcase who they are as a person, but just, that's you.
That's cool.
That's you. I don't know.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think that it gets a lot of those people were into it because like high school, and they could relate to it even if they didn't go to your school, but especially like the people from your school could 100%. Like hear you talk
and what
about
was
it.
So interesting is the people who were upset about it. I'm like, if you're hearing somebody talk about maybe something you participated in that caused them pain, and you are standing true in the fact that you're innocent, then like you haven't worked through this shit. And like, and if you're not going to acknowledge it, then you're part of the problem. And it was very specific in the sense that like this whole network of nudes thing, they were like trying to claim that there was like older people involved in it, people from outside of our school, like instead of people afterwards, I was hearing, instead of people saying like, hey, that really sucked, like I'm sorry that happened or whatever, they were like coming up with more excuses for why that happened. And I'm like, guys, we were talking about 18-year-old men who were taking pictures of 14-year-old girls, and like do you know what I mean? Like, and again, this is very specific, and you'd have to kind of listen to the episode to get it. But like, just the fact that people are hearing that and then jumping on the defense, like what you haven't left high school, and it just kind of showcases more about them, the fact that they got so upset about it, than it does about me talking about it.
Like they got upset like after the episode came out?
Yeah, they got upset that we were talking about it, and that we were that's what I'm saying. We're talking about high school and stuff that happened when I was in grade 9. So this was at least 8-9 years prior, and they were so bothered by it. And that's why I was like, if you're still holding on to that and you're still claiming your innocence, which I'm not even, if you feel guilty listening to it, knowing that you were participating in it, the reaction isn't to get mad that we're talking about it. Like, unfortunately, that's what happens when you cause people pain. You do have to accept that they might talk about it, and it's tricky. But I also, then people thought like, oh my God, nobody's safe around Tori. Like we got to watch what we say. I'm like, okay, well, this was 8 years ago. So if you want to go back in time, sure. But no, it was just silly stuff. But I mean, that was over a year ago, and it did gain a lot of new listeners, I will say, after that, because people realize that we're talking about real shit. Yeah. And, when stuff happens to you, you're allowed to talk about it. Yeah. It's my experience. I'm not calling these people out by name. I should have. I didn't.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's cool that you get so like personal about it and just get into those topics. But that's what gets you those big like listens and like those big followings. And those big,
I will say there is a line, and there does get to be a point where I have people, strangers, talking to me about stuff that I'm like, oh yeah, I talked about it on a podcast, and like they think they know me, and it's like, I get it.
So many people think they know you, but you don't know them.
I know, and that's been a
good
just
or
radio.
Bad. It's just a thing.
Radio in general has been like a real.
But they do know you. They listen to you talk every day about your life, and
that is me.
Stuff.
That is me. Like I'm not gonna lie and say like that's a big part of. I talk about the move. Like I have people asking me about the move. I was at a friend's house, and his mom listens, and she was just like, oh, so you should. I was talking about how garbage bins are so expensive. For what reason? Like, why? That's the kind of stuff you learn when you're moving out, right? And like paint. Like, what color do I paint my room? I don't know. Like
paint, rugs, garbage bins, throw pillows.
Rugs are gonna be the death of me. I swear. Lights, lamps. Oh my God, I have so many lamps off Marketplace now, just because I like.
Marketplace is great.
Marketplace is everything, actually. But anyway, I was at this guy's house, and I had said something that morning about garbage bins, and she's like, unprompted, she was like, oh, you should check out Costco. And I was like, for what? She was like, garbage bins. And I was like, how do you know? Oh, duh. Like I made it a whole conversation. And that's the thing about morning radio, is that you're inviting conversation. You want everybody to feel like you're their friend, which is good. And I love that, because I love attention. I will never act like I don't. And that was something when I started radio that they said, lean into. Dave Timo said, I remember I said something in my demo and I was like, God, it sounded like such an attention whore. And he was like, honey, if you're not a bit of an attention whore, you are not in the radio industry. And I was like, that's true. You do. There is fulfillment in that. And I don't know, you just have to be accepting that not everybody's perception is going to be accurate. And like, that's okay. Because my own perception of me is not accurate. You know what I mean?
It changes every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so one other thing before we go into the kind of final thing I wanted to ask.
Okay.
You're on a billboard.
I was.
Is that billboard gone now?
They've been gone for a while now. So
what was it like to be on a billboard?
You know, it wasn't my first time, to be honest.
Okay.
So when I worked at the marketing agency, billboards were like a big part of what we do, like setting them off, we'd had the designers, we would send them off. I knew the whole billboard process.
Yeah.
Pattison, out front, big fans, very familiar with them. So one time we had a client who was a funeral home, and they were doing a photo shoot for like a new thing that they were offering, like an end of life planning kind of thing. So they asked me to be like the sit-in granddaughter. So I did, and I was in this little corner of a billboard once, and that was fun.
One more thing before you finish the question, because you said that, there's a billboard in the city for a funeral home, and the headshot of the director is on the billboard.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's not a real estate agent.
I know.
Why is your face on there?
But you know what? I will say, as somebody who worked with people in that industry, first of all, they have a great sense of humor. They have to have a great sense of humor.
For sure. Yeah, you have a pretty depressing life, I would assume.
Yeah, and they really... This is a story... It's going to take a minute and I can tell it, but it's fine. So this funeral home, they had newly offered cremation, in-house cremation at one of their facilities. It was like a event center / crematorium, it's called. Okay. We said, great opportunity to open an ice cream place in here, by the way, but they didn't like that. They actually didn't say, we didn't tell them that, but that was a joke we had in the office. But we went to go do this photo shoot, and they were giving us a tour of the crematorium. And it's a brilliant thing. So they're quick cremations, and it has to do with, I want to say there's a South Asian culture or something where it's very important that they are with the body up until cremation. There's a couple different cultures where this is a thing, where the cremation happens very quickly and the whole family has to be present. So they essentially had built like a center with a conveyor belt kind of thing in a, I don't want to call it an oven, but that's what it is, in the corner.
Yes.
And but it was like a comfortable place. Like it was very, warm and welcoming, and
it was like the rooms at like an animal hospital, like where you go with
kind
your
of,
dog
kind of, yes, but bigger and more tailored to humans. Yeah. But
they're always like nice and cozy, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It was very cozy. The decor was very cozy. But anyway, we're in there. They're giving us the tour. We're doing the photo shoot, and there was somebody being cremated, but it wasn't like a fast one. There was no family there. It was just they had it, so they were doing it, and they were giving us a little bit of a rundown, and we were asking how long it takes, and they're like, well, it takes about an hour, and I was like, well, what if you have like somebody who's bigger, like a taller, bigger person? How would it take longer? And they're like, yeah, that would take. Keep in mind, this is like the CEO of the funeral home. My art director is next to me. We have a photographer. We have multiple people with the funeral home. They're posing, right? And I said, what if they're a bigger person? And they were like, well, yeah, it would take a little bit longer. And I was like, what if you only wanted the medium rare? And I was like, I watched my art director's face just fall. Their faces go into shock. And then the one older woman who worked there just burst out laughing, and I was like, thank fucking God. I almost just lost this as a client because I just came out of my mouth. I didn't even think. But I will tell you, they're very funny people. I really did enjoy them. Billboard selection and billboard design you could talk about that forever. I don't know if you've seen, there's a local strip club that has a bunch of billboards that say new girls, new effort, and it kills me every time.
Okay, so I actually am doing, it's so funny you brought that up. Like probably, I do a lot of my personal work. I travel to shoot it, but I've been working on like some local work, and I walk around and I go around like Windsor Essex County, and I do a lot of black and white film. Okay. And I shot that billboard because like,
it's the best.
That's a good picture.
Fun.
So, and I just got the scan back like 2 days ago, and I remembered it, and then you just brought that up.
They do like cycles of them. They
got some
That's the thing. So to go back to my own billboard, the mixed billboard that we did. So you book billboards, for like X amount of time, and they'll be at different locations. So for like 6 weeks we were on Walker at whatever, and it has to do with like time of year, has to do with price, has to do with all this different stuff that I don't deal with anymore. But when I did, we would be booking like certain locations to try and get like, depending on, you know, where our listeners are or aren't, like that kind of shit. So the whole billboard thing is pretty familiar to me. It was fun. I wasn't a huge fan of the photo they picked. I'm still not, because if you haven't seen it, my tongue is out.
Is your tongue out? I've seen it, but I didn't really
biting my tongue. I didn't
biting
it.
Look into it that much.
It's
on your Instagram, so everybody that's watching can go see.
It's somewhere. I don't know where it is, but the picture is just. I don't know how they got it. Like we did it in our studio. Like we had a green wall or whatever, and we did it. Jay and I. And Jay is also like very much taller than me. He's like 6'3". He's a huge guy.
Wait, the one where you're doing this?
Yes. Like, do you see my tongue?
No, because it's the picture from your Instagram, so it's
you can't see it close up.
Yeah.
So that picture does exist somewhere that I can find for you, but my tongue is out and I'm biting my tongue, and I never do that. So how they got this photo and then put it on a billboard, I was like, this is not me. Who is that? You guys
didn't get to pre-approve
They showed us after it was sent. They showed us the proof from the company, from Outfront, after it was already out. I was like, you motherfuckers. I mean, it doesn't really make a difference whether my tongue was in or out. But, like, to me, I look at that and I'm like, wow. And I would drive by it. And I was like, oh, that's me with my tongue out. But it was cool. It's a cool thing to do. But, you know, being on a billboard is fun. It's fun. It's really fun. And we had a lot of eyes. And people would be like, oh, my God, I saw your billboard. That was so cool. I'm like, don't talk about it.
I've shot billboards, but I've never been on one.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's young. Anybody can get a billboard. There are laws, like in terms of like what legally can be on them. And I think you always have to have some kind of like discrepancy of who is advertising, like some kind of logo or something on it. Like you can't just put like "Love Jesus" on a billboard. In the States, you can do that, but here you can't.
Oh, man, there's some crazy. Have you ever driven into Florida?
Yes, I just drove from here to Vancouver actually.
Okay.
Recently, and the religious billboards are just fascinating.
The billboards going into Florida. It's like a mural of Jesus, and then the next billboard is Joe Biden with a turban on and a rocket launcher. That's what it is.
Yes, because they're very fast and loose with their rules, and in Canada you can't do that. But it's so funny.
I love when people try to make points that are just like so like racist, but they're always like so like stupid.
The dumbest people are the loudest. That's what they say. Yes, it's brutal. We can talk about that forever.
The people with the most. That's why you might think that like everybody, just for example, everybody, like if you're on social media and doing things, everybody hates Trudeau. Okay. That's probably not the case,
sure.
But the people that hate him are the ones that don't stop talking about it, and the people that it's just like, and I'm not just using him as an example.
I know, yeah.
But like anybody, like everybody hates like AOC.
Oh yeah, sure. People make it their whole identity, and that's something that I've never understood, and I think I'm lucky in this regard. Is that like we're encouraged to be so positive about so many things, like. We talked to Doug Ford on the phone. Oh, that was kind of cool. That was an interesting one because it was on the phone. It was really quick. And if you haven't heard it, it's stupid. We did a quick live interview with him 5 minutes after the battery plant was announced. Locally.
Oh, cool, yeah.
So he was on his way back. Like he was here, made the announcement, and then he scheduled a bunch of whatever, his assistant, whatever. So we were on the phone with him, did a quick live interview, and we had time for 2 questions. So we asked him, first of all, the standard, what's going on? What did you just announce? What's happening? So we did that whole spiel. And then I was like, my question. I said, Mr. Premier of Ontario, would it be possible to rename the road Electric Avenue? And he fucking burst out laughing. And like when I tell that story, I'm like, I asked a major politician, love him or hate him, but like I asked him if we could rename the fucking, and he loved it. And you know, that's the kind of stuff that you do want to do. So no matter how I feel about him or any kind of anything, you do want to always swing it. I did meet Jagmeet. That was pretty neat.
Did you?
It wasn't through the radio. I just went to one of his things, and he said I had a warm energy.
Oh.
Yeah, I was like, you're right.
I've done work for/with Trudeau, Ford, and Lisa Gretzky. Oh. So like all 3 levels.
Love Lisa. Lisa's great.
All 3 parties. Yeah, Lisa's awesome. That's who I was with at Pride.
Yeah,
right.
I
was working for her.
The ballot or the things. So that was. What was I just gonna say that was important, and I've totally fucking lost it. That happens often. The billboards. Now we moved past that.
You said Ford. Electric Avenue.
Electric Avenue. It was fun. You know what? It was this stripper thing. Oh, I do voice work too. That's something that I do as well. I do it for our company, of course. That's part of our obligations. But I also do secondary, like independent.
You're allowed to freelance it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because I do commercials and sometimes I need voiceovers.
Call me.
I'll let you know.
I love doing it. I love it. And I've really kind of accepted that, like, I do have a pretty good voice and you should actually lean into it. Because for the longest time, I'm like, oh, it's so boring. But now I'm like,
when you talk all the time too, you just like naturally get better at.
Yeah. Big time, especially with podcasting. But the strip club thing, I do a lot of advertisements. I am like the designated voice for anything kind of sexy.
Oh, okay, all right.
I've done a lot of like sex toy shop ads. I've done
like local ones.
Yes,
yeah, okay.
Yes. I've done those. I've done, I think Stag Shop maybe once. I forget. But they just send us the scripts and they're like Tori to voice. Like they requested you for this one. And they're fun. They're fun. I don't know why, but on 2 separate occasions for 2 separate things. One was a strip club and one was a sex toy shop. But I said the line, "Oh, Captain, my Captain," in both. And there was no correlation.
Really?
Nobody knows why. But it, like, I was like, and I said it to the producer who sent it to me. I was like, why have I said this twice now for 2 separate sexual things? And he was just like, I don't know. But the one was like nautical themed. The other one, I have no idea where that came from. But that's just been my life over the years. But yeah, I remember I did like a series of strip club voiceover things, or not voiceovers, commercials. It was commercials that they were airing, and super interesting because like they only air those in the evening, and so not a lot of people. I'll be like, oh yeah, I voiced some strip club ads, and they're like, when? I'm like, well, you won't hear them on Mix, you'll hear them on Cool at night, but it's that kind of stuff. Voiceover stuff, or voice acting stuff is really fun. And it's something I've tried to like hone in on a little bit, but it's oversaturated. There's so many people trying to do it.
Yeah, oh no, I could imagine.
Everybody's got a voice, right?
I've had to outsource it before, and I went to the source of voice, and I had Dan McDonald do it. Mm-hmm. Because, like, why would you not ask a radio DJ? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Who's going to do a better job at reading something? You guys read for commercials all the time, like it's
I do love doing it too.
Yeah.
I love doing commercials. I really fucking do. They'll send them, and unless they send me like 50 at a time, I'm like, fuck off. But after your show, you do have to like pay attention to like taking care of your voice and stuff like that. After I do a whole morning show, if I did like a series of like a bunch of commercials, like by the end of it, I am drained, like done.
For sure.
And I can't believe it. I'm like, all I'm doing is talking, but you get so tired.
Yeah, you got to be careful too, like with your voice because you can do the morning show if you have like a little rasp in your voice one day. Because you're doing it every day.
Yeah.
But for the commercial,
I've gotten sick. We had to be careful with COVID. Like, you don't want people to hear you even if you have like allergies while you're sound not 100%. Like even right now, I don't think hearing myself, I don't think I sound 100%, but I have been drinking all weekend. So that'll do it. Oh my gosh. It's fun.
That's good. Enjoy the long weekend. So did your radio station like air previous topics for you guys today, or is just nothing on for your station today?
Yeah, today's an off day. Today will be no on-air talent at all, no announcing at all.
So what are they playing, like reruns? Oh, just music and commercials?
Yeah, that's what today will be. Commercial stuff is really interesting because there's like legal obligations for like how many commercials you have to play.
Oh, for sure.
What time of day you play certain commercials. Like, so if we've had instances where like if we go off air, it's very rarely silent. Like, and it happens super rarely. We all get like emails, like automatic emails if anytime there's like a lag anytime. So, it happened once that I can think of, but a playlist will kick on, with no commercials. So if we go off air for whatever reason, this playlist will automatically start. The first song is Bruno Mars. I forget which one, but it's a Bruno Mars song. I think it's Uptown Funk. And it'll play, and then you notice, you're like, oh, there's no commercials playing. But if we were there in the studio, we would know. But sometimes I'll just tune in and be like, make sure that commercials are playing and that we haven't gone off air and the playlist is kicked on. We would know by then, but like every now and then it happens. So then if that happens and no commercials play, then we got to do like a 45 minutes of commercials or something like that.
Or to make up for it.
Yeah, because you're obligated, right? So that's interesting. There's make goods, all that kind of stuff. It's fun.
That's cool. It's cool to hear like the how things work behind the scenes for radio and stuff like that.
Somebody asked me if we use CDs the other day. I was like, he was an older man. And I said, no, CDs have been pretty obsolete for a pretty long time now in terms of radio. We don't use CDs anymore.
Yeah, I'm assuming you just
it's an automatic. It's a like a catalog essentially that like A songs and B songs, and they kind of all mix together at certain times and whatnot.
I've only been in a radio station like legitimately one time. I was in the Rivers booth,
padded in that room, yeah,
with Dan, because he was interviewing me for his show he had on AIM 800 when he was still in the River, Here and Now.
Yeah,
I don't know if he still runs Here and Now because he has his own show. He does? I think he does.
Or somebody else does. I feel like it's still a thing.
I think it's still a thing, yeah.
Yeah, I think it is.
But anyway, when he was on the River, he would do that for fun on Sundays. He probably still does it. Anyway.
Knowing him, he does everything all the time. He's a very talented man.
Yeah, I love him. He's the best. Anyway, so he had me in the River booth, and like while he was playing songs and running commercials, he interviewed me and then used it for the the show.
Yeah, and we do that sometimes too. Like if we have somebody call in for like a like we'll do for example, coming up this week we have like a Friends with Benefits, which is a huge cash contest we do. People love it. So we'll announce like the winner. What happens is we say a name. People submit their name and their friend's name online. We pick it randomly. Actually, somebody sends it to us. We actually aren't even picking it. We'll get the name. We announce it. That person has 10 minutes to call us back. If they call us back within 10 minutes, $500 is theirs. Then they tell us a friend's name who they submitted, and that person's got 10 minutes to call us back. But we don't do that live. Like we don't take the calls live. So we'll usually that person is calling during commercials or like during the break or whatever. So we'll get the call really quick, record it, and then Jay with his talent will just flip it, have it ready and like cut and perfect and sounding live for
Is Jay doing all the like board stuff, or do you guys have like a producer thing?
Nope, Jay does it all right there.
Wow.
Yep. They asked me if I wanted to learn the board a couple years ago, and I was like, totally. And then I was like, I don't. I really don't. It's so scary. But doing the podcast has helped a little bit with that.
Yeah, because you're
and the more
behind
technical. Yeah. Me and Audition, we're besties.
You edit everything on Audition?
I edit everything in Audition, and in Leamington, my studio, the little studio I work in, for whatever reason, we have like Audition 92 or something like that, and I love it. From 1992, and I love it. So when I'm in Windsor and we have like it's like 2023, I'm like, I hate this. This is way too much happening here. Like I don't like it. I can't actually see what I'm looking at, whereas like the 92 is just so straightforward, so simple.
That's what I use.
It crashes, but it's fine.
Yeah.
You use Audition?
I'd use Audition. I use I use Adobe for everything.
Yeah.
So like if say I'm like editing a video in Premiere and I have to make a tweak to the audio, because like sometimes I'll edit the audio first and I'll bring it in, but like, there's like a hiss now that I'm actually listening to it. Sure. So you can edit an Audition and you don't have to and
just transfer it right over there.
It just automatically saves in Premiere.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Which is sick.
Yep.
So do you guys have like somebody who's answering your phones and like screening the calls? You don't have a call screener?
Just us.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Again, Jay is a very talented man.
Does anybody call and like say like weird
all
shit
the time, man? Oh my God. The one time, and again, we did this off air because this guy, what were we talking about? I don't remember what we were talking. I think it was something to do with like Oprah. Like, I don't even know how Oprah got brought up, but then this guy texted us and he was like, I got a crazy story about Oprah. My ex-wife was running a brothel and she ended up on Oprah. And we're like, can we call you? Like, what are you talking about? So we called him off air, and it was like a 10-minute phone call that, of course, we had to cut down to make appropriate for radio. But it was this story about this guy, we call him Brothel Ed now. His ex-wife, ran out on him and their child, I guess, and ended up moving to the States. They couldn't find her, had no idea where she was. Years later, they see her on Oprah, and she's running one of the only and most successful legal brothels in Nevada, because Nevada's the only place you can have them. Yep. So he gives us that whole context, this whole story, and we're just like listening, like Jay and I are just staring at each other. When we get calls, we are in the studio together, so we're sitting there like staring at each other like, it's just, what do we even do with this? Like, how do we even air this? But we have to. So we found a way to like play him, and now he's Brothel Ed. And we know not to answer Brothel Ed's live calls. We don't have a caller ID either. Like, we just see the light going off saying that somebody's calling, and then Jay will turn down the like live mics and put and like, hey, the mix, what's going on? And then sometimes people are saying just nonsense. Sometimes it's my dad. My dad likes to call.
Does your dad call?
He used to, not so much anymore. But I was like, you have to stop calling. Like I know you like the attention too. You want to be on the radio, but fuck off. Like we can't do it all the time. And my mom will call sometimes, and people will just whatever. We have one guy named Martin who calls pretty often.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I've never called a radio show. Have you?
Probably to try and win something like way back in the day. I think I tried to win M&M tickets when I was like 8 on Mojo in the morning, which they wouldn't even answer because it's Canadian. But
they won't answer Canadian phone calls?
I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think now.
What's funny is I never hear... because they're
Canadian winners?
when I listen to Mojo in the morning, and Canadian Winners, when I listen to Mojo in the morning, I feel like they think they're fucking 6,000 kilometers away from the border, not 20 feet.
Yeah, I know.
Because he came.
They never
here.
reference here. We're always talking about Detroit.
Never.
Always, yeah.
And this year, I was listening, and there was something at the casino. And Mojo was like, "I was at Caesars Windsor. We have a lot of fans there." And I'm like, "You guys know that? Like, you're like." Like, we're closer to your radio station than most of your listeners.
Yeah, we're closer to you than you are like a fucking pine knob. Like, fuck off. Yeah, I know. And we do that. I know. We do a lot of like, pretty much all of our big concert giveaways that aren't Caesars. They're in the States, different things, Little Caesars. Little Caesars, not Coliseum. Ford, like all of that, Royal Oak, anything. But
do you get a lot of free stuff or no?
Not really, no.
No.
I honestly don't get like free tickets to things. A lot of people think I do. I don't.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to ask me for them.
I was just gonna say, everybody likes to ask you, and you probably don't even get them for yourself.
I feel like I got more perks when I was working as a summer patroller than I do now, just because with COVID, like so much has changed and stuff. And
like, tell me about it. I used to shoot like a lot of like bigger bands and concerts in Detroit, and then when COVID happened, I kind of stopped shooting a lot of bands, one, because there wasn't any. And then I just kind of like, I've done some since, but nothing crazy. But I've always liked to apply for like my favorite bands. When they come to Detroit, apply for a photo pass. And I haven't just heard crickets since like bands music has started again.
Yeah.
And the people, like the connections I have in Detroit that I shoot for and stuff, they're like, we're not getting approved for anything anymore.
Really?
Like, you can't just like, they're just not giving out photo passes, or they're like, I don't know what it is, but ever since COVID, it's just, I used to shoot everybody, and it was like easy to get a photo pass. I was like 19 years old getting photo passes for like Marilyn Manson and stuff. And like,
wow.
Yeah. And now I can't get a photo pass to shoot, like, I don't even know, but whatever. It's just crazy.
It's honestly, it's wild. Do you know Kevin Blondin? Yeah. So he's like a good friend of mine, a really good friend.
He
was
actually mouse together.
Nice.
Yeah.
He was on the podcast, but now he does like strictly drag photography, right? So we were talking about that and about how he's like, anytime somebody I even am remotely interested in, I just apply for the photo pass. I don't even think about it, which makes so much sense.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
You get to go for free. And you get to be right at the front, and you get to shoot photos.
The whole COVID thing, that huge giant thing that changed the world. Festivals and such, like, and this is coming from somebody who was like, I used to work all of the like big, fun fests and the hair fairs and stuff like that. A lot of those kind of rules and regulations have changed as well. Like, there's a lot more people behind like planning it and stuff. Like, there's a lot, like it's all taken very seriously now, and like it's probably for the best. It's to avoid a lot of like legal things, but it's also like, is everybody having fun? Like, are the vendors getting anything out of this? Like, I know they are. I know they are, but it just feels like there's a lot more hoops to jump through to just be at an event, where before it used to be a lot simpler. But you do that, right? You do shows all the time.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Vendory kind of stuff.
And this is also coming from the media, so I'm sure there's discrepancies and whatnot, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, everything's different. People don't come to as many things, I find.
Yeah.
Like, I've had some shows, like some group shows, and like people in the group show didn't even come. Like, how do you expect other people to come?
Yeah.
People don't even come.
No, that's the thing, is you're kind of expected to bring in people, right? That's part of what it is. It's basics of event organizing.
Like, when I do an event, like, I'll do a collaborative show with a bunch of artists.
Yeah.
You don't even if I have 25 artists and you all come with your significant other, it's 50 people.
Yeah.
Plus
bring a friend, bring in anybody. Yeah. And then you're just introduced to people.
Yeah. Even if nobody comes, that's still 50 of us plus the 12 band people. We just had a good event.
And you're connecting. Yeah.
You guys, but of course you're going to bring, like, more people are going to come if you don't even show up, like,
it shows you don't care. Yeah.
Don't even bring your stuff if you can't even come to your own thing.
Yeah,
like,
that's dumb.
How do you want other people to see your stuff,
Yeah, that's
crazy.
A landscape that's changed a lot. And again, this is going from working it to now kind of like interacting with organizers and stuff like that. You just see that there's a lot more like regulations and a lot more hands in it. And it's like, just let me set up a booth. Leave me alone.
I feel bad for people. See, like, you got into radio, like, you were already into your thing before COVID hit.
Yeah.
Barely, but you were.
Yeah. I mean, like, media in general. Yeah. And I think about it sometimes, like, what would be next in terms of like work, because I did the agency thing, and I don't think I was necessarily even done with it. It was just that the environment I was in was really bad. It's a place known for like poor treatment and such. But like, I'm certainly not feeling like I don't know. It's just, people all the time ask like, so this is it, this is what you wanted to do. And I'm like, again, no, like it wasn't the goal. Like radio wasn't the goal, and I'm not done by any means. Like I'm not finished with it. I haven't gotten everything that I haven't given everything, let alone gotten everything. But it is, you know, a conversation that it's like, I'm 25, almost 26. Like, you know, life happens and radio changes and mediums change and like, who knows what's going to happen. And it's scary, but it's also like, I feel like I'm at a point where you didn't ask me this at all. I'm going on a tangent.
That's okay. That's what we like.
Yeah, I know. When people go on a rant on the podcast, they're like, what was I saying? I'm like, I don't know. It was perfect though.
Yeah, just keep going. Like, keep going. People are here to listen to you, not to me. So
exactly.
If I don't have to ask you questions, it just makes my job easier.
Regardless, Windsor, Essex, and everything that's, you know, that there's been a big change. You can just see that whether you're in any industry that you're in has changed, no matter what it was. But we're kind of still in the midst of figuring out how to go forward. As much as it might seem like we're in the new normal, we're not. There's never a new normal. Nothing's ever normal.
It took so long that the world is different in every aspect.
Yes.
Even in like at this point, like, so my wife, like she's not in things that were affected by COVID, but she is. So she's a dog groomer.
Okay. Oh,
do you know how much work there is? Everybody has a dog now.
Yes.
It's insane.
Yes.
And there's not enough groomers in the city for how many dogs there are.
Didn't even think of that.
They're just,
you know,
she's just full.
Yeah.
Everybody's just full.
Yeah.
Like you actually, like if you have a dog and you're like looking for a groomer, it's like people like call her and they're like, can you get her in? If she's like, yeah, they're like, oh my God, thank you so much.
I know.
Like I couldn't find anybody. Like
I used to follow a groomer on Instagram who was local, who had like such a high demand. I was like, are you a celebrity in the dog grooming world? Like what is going on? And it's a very, like niche, but like also like needed thing that you don't even think about.
Everybody bought a dog.
Yeah.
And a lot of people bought doodles.
Oh my,
so like
everybody.
Poodle mixes.
Yeah.
And those need extensive grooming.
Regular
grooming. So it's
the
just
things you notice, right? The things you
so
never thought you would
crazy.
even think about. And all of a sudden COVID's like put everything, but it's also like growing up and, you know, just things and stuff. I don't know. I'm 22 when this started and now I'm 25. 22 when COVID started, 25 and COVID's not over as much as you want to say it is. Not over. And we're still reeling. So
you got a late birthday then, eh?
I do.
What
September 11th.
Really? You're the day after my wife.
Oh, yeah?
But your birthday's on 9/11?
9/11. It was my 4th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. I was watching Teletubbies, and my dad is a truck driver, and my parents were together at the time, and he called and was like, hey, you have to turn on the news. And it was my motherfucking birthday, and my mom turned off Teletubbies to watch the Twin Towers. No, it's a joke. It's an ongoing joke. But
I was 5 because my birthday's in November. So, yeah, it was your 4th birthday. I was still 5. And I remember I was at school and my mom came and picked me up for lunch and then didn't bring me back. My dad's a teacher in the States. So the first tower hit and then they brought like TVs in the classrooms. He's a high school teacher. Sure. They plugged it in and then he was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. He's like, I'm not gonna be able to go home.
So crazy.
He said he was the only one on the bridge. He was probably one because then you couldn't cross for a couple days.
Yeah, that was the big thing with my dad because he was in the States as well, coming home. So there was a big question about what was going to happen.
2 or 3 days of no crossing.
Yeah, I don't even remember now because it was my birthday. I only cared about me.
And I was also we were 4 and 5.
I know.
But my dad made it back here.
Yeah.
And Vero has a story from that too. She like flew to get across to do like interviews.
To do the story. Yeah.
Because she was working at the Windsor Star.
Yeah. Oh, you know who I met? I met Lisa Laflamme. I went to a conference this year that she was in. She was like the keynote speaker. She was the one who, I don't know if you know, but she recently got let go of, is it CTV or CBT? CBT, CT, whatever. Because she decided to grow her hair out gray. Did you hear about this story?
No.
So she's an anchor, a TV anchor.
Yeah.
So she got let go and it was all because of the hair. There's this whole big thing. So anyway, she was speaking and she was talking about 9/11 and her experience because she was very much an on the grounds get there. She said that Katrina was the worst thing she's ever seen, worse than 9/11, which I believe. I mean, of course, everything's tragic and you can't compare it, but she said that like visually and what you're seeing and like bodies floating down rivers and stuff like that was the worst. And it's this kind of stuff where it's like, you're there and you know what's happening. I was 4, you were 5, 9/11, but like everybody has this extremely like traumatizing collective story of what happened, even if they were a high school teacher pulling a TV in or whatever it was, or watching TV as a kid or whatever the case was. And it's like, it's awful. COVID was awful, but we all did it at the same time. Like, do you know what I mean? We all kind of had different varying degrees of something that was all happening to us at the same time. And the fact that so many people turned to hateful shit just blows my fucking mind.
Yeah.
Such a good time for Trump to enter and do that shit. Like, it was just a good time, as in for that narrative is just fucked. Anyway, that's just another story.
We got into 9/11.
My birthday is 9/11. I was 4. There's lots of jokes, and I do prefer the jokes.
It's funny you guys have a birthday day apart. So your birthday's next Monday, a week from today.
Yes, I'm going to be in Vancouver.
Nice.
Yeah, my friend lives there now, so I am flying out. Flair. Shout out Flair.
Flair. From Windsor?
Yes.
Were you flying to Abbotsford, though?
Nope.
Or Vancouver?
Vancouver.
Wow.
Yeah, they got $80 flights now.
Nice. Round trip or just there? Like
round trip, actually.
$80.
I'll tell you, I got both for, well, okay, so they do tack on all these ridiculous fees, but for both, there and back, flying out Saturday, getting in Wednesday, 400, I think it was. 415, yeah.
I'm going to New York for my birthday this year, just alone. I like to, I haven't been since COVID, but I did it a couple years before COVID. I just go for like 5 days.
All right.
And I just shoot like a lot of street photography. It's so much fun. I love it. Just walk around the city. It's great.
Yeah.
So
I would love that.
I'm going there for, you would never guess what my round trip cost.
To fly to New York and fly home?
Yeah.
I couldn't even.
It was $29 round trip.
$29?
That's what I'm saying. Well, I had some points because I just flew to Oakland and back.
Okay.
And then the flights were, right now, so it's 26 each way.
Yeah.
So I got one for free.
Sure. See, why wouldn't you though, right?
That's why I was like, I don't know if I want to go this year.
$29, you better go.
My wife's like, just buy the ticket and don't go then.
Yeah.
I was like, that's
fucking true, but that's unheard of, right? You've never.
She's like, it's $40. It came to like 41 Canadian. She's like, who cares if you don't go? It's $40. I was like, that is a good idea. And then I just bought the ticket.
Yeah.
And when I was buying the ticket, remember the power went out from the storm last week?
Right. We had
the power went out as I clicked confirm, and then I lost cell phone signal, and I didn't I was like,
you didn't know if
did it fucking book or not? And then I woke up in the morning and like I didn't have cell phone signal either.
It was wild, yeah.
And then I had the confirmation email. I was like, oh, thank God.
You did it. You got your $29. Oh my God.
It's going to be $400. I'm going to go book it tomorrow. I'm going to get screwed.
Well, shout out Flair. I will say Flair's got some good things going. Would love for you to be an official radio client because we would love to give away some trips. We do think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Always see things through a radio scope.
I remember Wow was a good airline.
Wow was good, yeah.
I flew to Iceland on them.
Wow.
Is that on purpose or no?
Yeah, this is the thing with radio wit. It just comes out sometimes. No, it's just fun.
Okay, before we wrap it up, this is a very long. This is a long episode.
An hour-long wrap-up.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, is there anything else that you're like interested in besides radio that you like really love, like hobby-wise and stuff?
I do love music. I really do. I am a big fan of music history, but like everybody is, right? Yeah. But I do. I don't know what the avenue there is, but I always kind of think that I could be doing more in regards to music. I collect records, which is pretty fun. Cool. Pretty fun. It's expensive. I don't know. And now I'm moving, so like I'm moving all of these crates of records. Like, when did you spend this much money? Like, fuck. I'm one of those people where like you pick up a hobby and then you're done with a month you're done with it within a month if you're not immediately good at it. Not that you'd be good at record collecting, but I don't know what it is. I do have a lot. Honestly, no. I just always like to think that it will involve music, whether or not it's career-wise or just like life.
Cool.
You know, I'm not musical at all, like in terms of ability and virtuoso, if that's the word, but none of that. So we'll see, I guess. If anybody knows of anything where I can do minimal work, but also, have minimal talent, but also be invested, I don't know.
You can go play records at like Fog or different places. They'll let you go play records. You just jam the night out. Sure. Pressure drop. He lets you do that.
You know what? I've been doing a lot of like, like I emceed a wedding this summer. Sick. I've been doing like a lesbian wedding. It was pretty neat. It was pretty fun. Nice. During Pride, which was real fun. They did everything just spoke for itself. That more public speaking things. I don't know if it's podcasty stuff, but I know that I feel very fulfilled when I do like a good performance in that regard. Because sometimes it is legitimately a performance. Yeah, for sure. I like to be liked. Yeah. Who doesn't?
That's a good idea. Yeah, to like host events and stuff like that. Because like, especially when you're already like a community leader person. Sure. Whatever.
I know. It feels weird to hear and it feels weird to say. I know. Yeah. A personality, honestly, that's what it is.
Yeah, community radio personality.
It's technically my title.
Yeah.
On-air personality. Yeah. On-air talent. Broadcast. It's everything. Yeah. Anything you want.
Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Of course. I'm happy I got to.
It was a lot of fun. I definitely want to have you back because we just talked about so much stuff, but there was so much I didn't even talk about that I want to talk about.
That's what I do. I don't know, and I should have told you this. When I come up with the questions, I pretty much come up with 3 or 4 knowing that we're going to go on like we're going to go everywhere else and we're just going to let it happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why I come up with minimal questions. I always start with like, so are you close with your parents? It's the first one. And then they'll be like, oh, I am, or I'm not, or they died, or whatever. Like you kind of you get really fast, really quick with a lot of the basic stuff. Quick question. This is something, just a little tidbit, especially if you're dating, if you're out here dating, ask people if their parents still live in the house that they grew up in. And this is totally something I came up with. But if you ask somebody just like casually, oh, do your parents still, while you're getting to know somebody, do they still live in the house that you grew up in? You get the question answered of whether or not they're alive, whether or not they're from here, whether or not they're close with their parents, whether or not their parents are together. Like it's a way of, and maybe this is, my talent here is that like, again, I'm good at getting deep without even like seeming like it. So it's very, people who maybe have a hard time being vulnerable, I feel like they're like, oh my God, I've never told anybody this, but I'm telling you this. And I love that. I'm gonna inject that into my veins. I love that shit. I love when people are like, I've never said this before, especially on the podcast. I'm like, let's go. But it's a good way to like get deep without anybody thinking that you're like intruding on their privacy.
For sure.
Do you know what I mean? And it's really good for dating is what I'm saying. It's a good way if you're like with somebody who's maybe not super forward about themselves or like comfortable. All right, do your parents still live in the house that you grew up in?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, because my answer to that is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's is. Do you want to answer it?
Oh, it's so long. It's so long.
I believe you.
I'll answer very quickly. My parents were like always like together, not together when I was a kid. Yeah. So like we would like all live together for like a couple years and then they'd split up, and then we lived together for a couple years and then they'd split up, and then they would always but they'd always be together even if like we didn't all live together.
Sure.
And then when I was like in grade 6, they got engaged and then they got married and then they had 2 kids. So I have
two more kids.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was an only child until I was 13. And then in grade 8 and 9, I had 2 sisters and they're only 11 months apart to the day.
Wow. And then you have such a crazy age difference from them.
Yeah. So my sister starts high school tomorrow and the other one starts grade 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I love this kind of like the unconventional family unions. I love that shit. I love that shit.
So it's funny because like we're a million years apart and, but like they're my full sisters and we say mom and dad.
Yeah. Love that.
It's, and there's no one in between us.
All right.
And it's just us 3.
And that's got to totally, skew the way that like they grow up versus the way you grow up. Because 13, you got babies in your life all of a sudden.
Yeah. I'm good with babies.
And this is what I'm saying. This is how we get way below the surface without even trying.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Right?
Yeah. It was very interesting because like being an only child forever and then just like having 2 babies.
Yeah.
Was like.
When you're like pubescent and everything like that and you're starting, that's got to be
great
wild.
I had a pregnant mom for 2 years when I was in grade 9. It was awesome.
A pregnant mom.
It was fucking terrible.
Just joke city everywhere.
No, it was just like hormones.
Oh, okay.
It was fucking. It was.
You're going through what you're going through. She's going through what she's going through.
Imagine you're my dad. You have a 9th grader.
Yeah.
He's a high school teacher. So you're with kids all day. Then you have a 9th grader, a newborn baby, and a pregnant wife.
Oh no! I can't imagine that.
So my mom, so my mom was pregnant with a newborn the whole time. She only wasn't pregnant for like 6 weeks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's fucking crazy.
And that's got to breed some pretty crazy stories, I'm sure. Wow.
Yeah.
See? Have you ever talked about this before here?
How about you? Do your parents live in the same house?
No, my parents have been divorced a long time. Since I was 4, I want to say, but I have 2 half-sisters and 1 full sister. We moved out of this. We lived on like a farm in McGregor for a while, and then they were building a house when they divorced. So then my dad moved back into that farm. So he lived there for a while, and then he moved away, he moved to Peterborough, and then he moved back into that same house again. So like, again, you see how it like goes everywhere? Because within that, there's like 1,000 stories.
Oh my God.
A lot of them really fucked up. It's still really fun,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so long story short, no, they do not. Okay. Nobody lives in that house that I know of, at least.
It's funny. My parents actually, so my mom lives 1 block that way and my dad lives 1 block that way.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
It's very convenient when you're hungry.
Yeah. Oh my God. I fucking believe it. I so believe you. I believe you. Well, this has been a ball. Yes, I'm glad we got to do this.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.